Chapter 1139. As the weather slowly became warmer, the situation in the signs slowly stabilized. After the Kanla Empire easily recovered the southern provinces with the help of the new flyer, the 10 provinces that declared independence quickly returned to the embrace of the Kanla Empire. As for the provinces that fell into chaos, they didn't even need to mobilize the new flyer's guard. Under the powerful attacks of the Kanla Empire's royal army, they didn't last long and returned to peace. Very quickly, the internal strife of the Kanla Empire was completely suppressed. On the surface, apart from the Toria province becoming the Toria Autonomous Region and their attitude towards the Kanla Empire being ambiguous, the Kanla Empire didn't seem to have changed much compared to before the war. The only difference was that their cooperation with the new flyer became closer. Compared to this, the Mala Empire, which was also one of the 2 empires, didn't change much. Even if they had suffered heavy losses in the battle with the Lampuri Kingdom, the Drake Duchy, and the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's army, as well as suffering heavy losses in the battle with the Kandra Empire's army, this didn't harm the foundation of the Marlow Empire. The invasion of the Kanla Empire led to rebellions in several provinces. The Malar Empire's internal situation could be said to be very stable from start to finish. There weren't any dissenting voices. After the war ended, the Malar Empire recovered much faster than the Kanla Empire. In less than half a year, they had almost recovered to their original state. Of course, the cooperation between the Mala Empire and the new flyer was originally closer. After this war, this close relationship became even deeper. In addition to the agreements signed with the Lampari Kingdom and the Drake Duchy, as well as the large amounts of technology and support that the Malar Empire obtained from the new flyer, the magic machine industry blossomed all over the Malar Empire. Almost every city, every noble's territory, all kinds of factories could be seen. It was a lively scene. Now that the 2 empires had returned to normal, the signs had also returned to normal. Compared to before the war, it seemed that only New Flyer had gained a higher reputation in the signs. The magic industry had become more sought after by the various countries on the continent, but everything else seemed to be the same. Of course, the Sac Kingdom and the Drow Kingdom that had disappeared in the history of signs definitely wouldn't think this. However, they had already been eliminated by this era, so naturally, no one would pay attention to them. Most people's attention was still on the new flyer. To the new flyer, apart from the enormous prestige and fame gained from defeating the 2 empires, what was more significant and valued was the benefits. Apart from the preferential policies of the 2 empires and the actual resources obtained from the Armistice Agreement, the most obvious benefit that New Flyer had obtained after this was that all aspects of trade had finally returned to normal. As soon as the news of the Armistice Agreement between the 2 empires and New Flyer was spread, all kinds of orders that had been cut off because of the war were sent to the New Flyer like snowflakes. In just a month after the Armistice Agreement was signed, New Flyer had received 80% of the orders from the year before. As the situation on the continent stabilized and the attitudes of the 2 empires were confirmed, New Flyer's orders quickly increased. When it came to June, when New Flyer did internal sales statistics, they found that in the first 5 months of this year, just the sales of the Shinfei Household Magical Machinery Chamber of Commerce had far surpassed the sales of the year before, even surpassing it by 40%. This also meant that after this war, not only did New Flyer not suffer a large loss in terms of trade, it had actually soared because of this. Of course, this was something that was very easy to understand. After all, through this war, New Flyer's fame had already entered the ears of everyone in the signs, leaving a deep impression that couldn't be erased. With just a single company, they could defeat the armies of the 2 empires and force the 2 empires to admit defeat. This was several times more effective than any advertisement. So although this impression was a bit different from reality, New Flyer was without a doubt the strongest company in the history of the signs. Since it was the strongest company, of course the things it produced were the best. So the people who doubted New Flyer and doubted new things like magic machines couldn't help buying the magic machines produced by New Flyer out of curiosity. Normal citizens couldn't use magic machines, but household magic machines could be used. So this caused the sales of the Xinfei Household Magical Machinery Chamber of Commerce to soar. Other than the Xinfei Household Magical Machinery Chamber of Commerce, the sales of the other New Flyer branches also increased to varying degrees. The one with the most exaggerated growth was without a doubt the Xinfei Heavy Magic Machine Company. Just in the month of May, the Xinfei Heavy Magic Machine Company's sales had broken 17 million gold coins. Of the 17 million gold coins in sales, over 5 million gold coins were related to agricultural magic machines, and over 10 million gold coins were related to production magic machines. The reason why the sales of magic machines had exploded was because the various countries in the signs were trying to develop the magic machine industry, so naturally they needed large amounts of magic machines. This was just the beginning of these countries' attempts. When they found some insights and began developing on a large scale, the demand for magic machines would become even more exaggerated. According to the estimates of the Xinfei Heavy Magic Machine Company, they had a chance of breaking the terrifying 400 million gold coins in sales by the end of the year. If it was like this, just a single Xinfei Heavy Magic Machine Company branch would have a yearly profit of over 50 million gold coins. Calculating the current situation of the Xinfei Household Magical Machinery Chamber of Commerce and the Xinfei Heavy Magic Machine Company, as well as the other branches of the New Flyer, the New Flyer's yearly profit this year would have a terrifying breakthrough. It was even possible for it to double the yearly profit before the war. Regarding this result, the high-level members of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce were happy and worried. The happy thing was that after the New Flyer's losses from the war 2 years ago, they had finally received the good news of a large increase in profit. The worried thing was that after the war, the New Flyer had signed a large number of contracts with the close to 100 countries, including the two empires. They needed to invest a terrifying amount of money, so the pressure on the company wasn't small. Moreover, the chairman had proposed an even more terrifying plan. If nothing unexpected happened, all of the New Flyer's profits for the next few years would be thrown in, and they might not even see any profit. If the same large-scale war happened again, whether or not the New Flyer had the strength to persist was a problem. However, just like how no country in the signs dared to defy the New Flyer, no one in the New Flyer dared to defy the chairman. The New Flyer high-level members didn't even have the strength to be surprised by the new plan proposed by the chairman. They could only resolutely carry it out without any hesitation and do their best to realize this plan. Not to mention how complicated this plan was, just the New Flyer's post-war recovery was already very troublesome. During the war, most of the New Flyer's decisions and manpower were focused on providing support to the New Flyer Guard. After the war, not only could the New Flyer Guards not be reduced in size, they even had to be expanded. Apart from ensuring that the New Flyer had enough deterrence, it was also for the New Flyer's future development. Therefore, after the war ended, the New Flyer once again issued a public recruitment. Due to the terrifying battle strength the New Flyer Guards displayed in this war, countless people on the continent felt proud to join the New Flyer Guard. As a result, more than 300,000 people applied for the open recruitment this time. In the end, the New Flyer only recruited 5,000 people, and the recruitment rate wasn't even 1/60th. However, even though it was only an increase of 5,000 people, there was a lot of work to be done for these 5,000 people. Therefore, the staff surrounding the New Flyer Guards had been extremely busy during this period. Apart from the expansion of the New Flyer Guards, the reconstruction of the New Flyer's business relationship was also of the utmost importance. The fact that the new flyer was able to completely restore its business relationship in such a short period of time, and it was even better than before, had a lot to do with the hard work of the staff during this period of time. In addition, just restoring it to its original state wasn't enough. In order to help other countries develop the magic industry, the new flyer needed work that was incomparably complicated. In order to solve these tasks, they needed a lot of manpower. Therefore, the new flyer had no choice but to recruit a lot of people from other departments, which made the new flyer's personnel department very busy. After recruiting people, they were also responsible for training them and helping them adapt to their jobs faster. There were a lot of things that needed to be done. Not only were the higher-ups and managers busy, but the ordinary employees were also busy. Because the new flyer's orders were squeezed due to the war, and because of the large number of orders that came in during this period of time, the ordinary employees had no choice but to work overtime like crazy. Of course, for these ordinary employees, it was also a good thing. After all, the overtime pay was higher. Therefore, since the armistice, almost everyone in the new flyer fell into an extremely busy state. But just as everyone was working hard, Sue suddenly announced a decision that was out of everyone's expectations. It sounded very unprofessional. He actually wanted to hold a personal press conference. Chapter 1140. Banta City in June was already a bit hot. With the bright sunlight falling down, the streets of Banta City that were covered in cement began to heat up. It made people sweat not long after walking on the streets, which didn't feel good at all. However, this didn't reduce the number of people in Banta City. It was still a lively and prosperous scene. As the place where the new flyer was established, the origin of the magic machine industry on the continent, as well as the transfer point for goods from the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the Principality of Constantine, Banta City had become one of the most prosperous cities in the Lampari Kingdom, as well as the southwest corner of the continent. Now that Banta City had been expanded several times, just the city area was more than 20 times the size of the old Banta City. The resident population had gone from around 50,000 to over 600,000 2 years ago, becoming the most populous city in the Lampari Kingdom. It even had 100,000 more people than the royal capital, Anvilmar City. If there were large amounts of people moving around, it was possible for Banta City's total population to surpass 1 million. With such a large population in a city, naturally it would be incomparably lively and prosperous at any time. But today, this liveliness and prosperity were even more obvious than normal. Especially in the streets of Banta City's Old City District. There were twice as many people walking on the streets compared to normal, filling all the streets of Banta City's Old City District. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could pass through. This was without a doubt a very strange phenomenon. Since Banta City's new city area was expanded, with the guidance of the City Lord Manor, Banta City's new magic machine industry and new people had been moving to the new city area. Even the citizens of Banta City, who used to live in the old city area, gradually moved to the new city area because the new city area was better and the facilities were more convenient. In the current Banta City's old city area, the resident population was much less compared to before. It was around 30,000 people, so it couldn't be crowded at all. The only possibility for this was that there was some kind of eye-catching event being held in the old city area. However, if there was an eye-catching event, it would be held in the new city area. After all, the new city district was more spacious and convenient for transportation. No matter how one looked at it, it was much better than the old city district. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the old city district would always be quiet and peaceful, which was almost the opposite of the new city district. Today was an exception. Whether it was the residents of the old city district or the people of the new city district who came to the old city district today, they were not surprised by this situation at all. because the Banta Times had already announced today's event several days ago. On the 18th of June, the New Flyers chairman Sue would be holding a press conference in Banta City. If one were to ask which city on the signs was the closest to the New Flyer, most people would think of Banta City when they mentioned Shinfei City that was built by the New Flyer. As the city where the New Flyer was built, the New Flyer could be considered closely connected to Banta City in the early part of the year. If it wasn't for the chaos in the Lampari Kingdom that forced the New Flyer out of Banta City and out of the Lampari Kingdom, the New Flyer's main base would still be in Banta City. The falling rain valley outside Banta City was still the most important magic machine industry base in Banta City and even the Lampari Kingdom. Most of the things were left by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. The citizens of Banta City still remembered the changes that the New Flyer brought to Banta City after it appeared. Moreover, they were still enjoying the benefits that the New Flyer left for Banta City, so naturally they had deep feelings for the New Flyer. So when they heard that Sue was coming to Banta City to hold a press conference, the people of Banta City were all excited and looked forward to it. On the 18th of June, there were countless people that came to Banta City's old city area early in the morning. It wasn't for anything else, it was just to personally attend Sue press conference and see Sue again. Since the press conference in Banta City many years ago, Sue hadn't appeared in public for over 10 years. Even if he had appeared on the battlefield with the Kanla Empire, most normal people rarely saw him. At most they could only see his image through the magic illusion projectors that the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had set up in various places. Even if they didn't care about the New Flyer and Sue, just based on the fact that Sue could be considered the most famous person in the signs and was also a powerful archmagus, it was enough to attract countless people to personally see him. Among the people that came to Banta City's old city area, other than normal citizens, there were also countless reporters from the various countries and cities of the signs. Sue holding a press conference, this was definitely the biggest news in the past half a year other than the signing of the ceasefire agreement between the two empires and the New Flyer. There wasn't a single newspaper that was willing to miss it. Moreover, although the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had held many press conferences and product announcements before, this was the first time that they had held a press conference for a single person. Not to mention that this was Sue's press conference, so everyone was very interested. Just what did he want to announce through this press conference? So as soon as they received this news, all the newspapers on the continent sent reporters to Banta City. There were even many reporters who came to Banta City's old city area several days ahead of time, waiting for Sue's press conference. Facts proved that these reporters who came ahead of time were wise. On the 18th of June, Banta City's old city area was already filled with countless people that there was no way to walk. If one wanted to walk to the press conference, Banta City's city square, it was incomparably difficult. It was a good thing that the Banta City Lord Manor had already expected this situation, so they had placed large amounts of city guards on the streets ahead of time to maintain order. But even so, the streets of the old city area were completely blocked since early morning. Every street that led to the city square was filled with anxious people. But outside the old city area, there were countless people heading towards the old city area, not having any intentions of stopping at all. Chairman Sue, you really caused me a disaster this time. Banta City's City Lord Count Belmo looked at the chaotic street in the distance and complained to Sue beside him with a bitter smile. I spent quite a bit of effort to restore the old city area to its previous peace, but now that you're here, all my efforts have been wasted. Sue laughed and made a helpless hand gesture to Count Belmo. I never thought that it would cause such a large reaction. I thought that at most some reporters would be interested in my press conference, but I never thought that the citizens would also be interested. Count Belmo could only keep giving a bitter smile. Chairman Sue, could it be that you don't know how popular you are in the hearts of the citizens? Since your New Flyer defeated the two empires, I dare say that in the hearts of most people on the continent, you as the new Flyers chairman isn't inferior to a god. Tell me, a god has suddenly descended to Banta City and is publicly meeting everyone. How could people not go crazy over this? You're exaggerating too much. Su-yi slowly shook his head. First, it wasn't our new Flyer that defeated the two empires, rather it was your Lampari kingdom and the kingdom of Ruhr that defeated them together. Second, this isn't just my merit alone, it should be the merit of everyone in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Count Belmo pointed at the crowd in the distance. Tell them this, see if they'll listen. Sui rolled his eyes. He thought that since he came from Earth, he should know better than you just how terrifying those fanatical groupies are. It was clear that because of the war with the two empires, he as the chairman of the New Flyer had become the most famous person on the signs. He could be considered a superstar. In this world where information was far from being developed, it was natural for a superstar like him to be publicly announced, creating a stir. Su-yi had expected this before, but he never thought that the people of this world would chase after stars. They weren't any worse than the fans on Earth, they were even more fanatical. We can't keep going like this. Count Belmo, send out a notice. Say that my press conference is only open to the invited reporters of the major newspapers, the others don't need to participate, and ask them to leave. Count Belmo looked at Su-yi with a strange expression before shaking his head. Chairman Su, do you believe that if I go out and say this to them, I will be immediately killed by the angry crowd? Is it that exaggerated? Yes, it's that exaggerated, Count Belmore said resolutely. So your meaning is, you want me to say it? Su-yi pointed at himself. Count Belmo's expression instantly softened, and there was even a pleading look in his eyes. Chairman Su, if I could do it, how could I trouble you to personally come out? But you can also see that these people have already lost their minds, so I really don't have the confidence to control the situation without any casualties. So, I can only trouble you with your abilities. Su-yi looked at the wild crowd in the city square outside the window and gave a bitter laugh. All right, this can be considered reaping what you sow. After saying this, Su-yi opened the window and instantly flew over Banta City's city square. Chapter 1141. According to the experience he had on Earth, Su-yi was very clear that if he appeared in front of everyone like this, it would cause a riot. If it was even more serious, it would cause a stampede that could cause injuries. So he wasn't in a rush to show himself. He used the magic communicator to contact the staff of the New Flyer in the city square and gave them his orders. After a while, the 4 large magic illusion projectors around the city square and the several hundred smaller magic illusion projectors that had been placed on the streets of Banta City over the years, as well as the magic illusion projectors outside Banta City's old city, suddenly the same scene appeared at the same time. It was Su-yi's full body. At the same time, Su-yi's figure appeared on the screens of the several hundred magic illusion projectors, attracting the attention of the crowd. Everyone looked at the magic illusion projectors in a daze. It was unknown who shouted a few times, but the crowd immediately broke out in cheers and shouts. The sound waves even shook the houses around the city square, making Su-yi flying in the air unable to help being shocked. He never thought that just by showing himself through the magic illusion projectors, it would cause such a large reaction. It was a good thing he didn't rashly appear in front of everyone, otherwise there might have been serious consequences. This was Su-yi's first time being cheered by so many people in his life, so he couldn't help feeling a bit smug. But he immediately calmed down and after pausing, he raised his hand. With his actions, Su-yi on the screens of the hundreds of magic illusion projectors in the city square, in the old city, and outside the old city also made the same action. That's right, this was a live broadcast. With Su-yi's help, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's Magic Illusion Projector Research Department had made a breakthrough in this area at the end of last year. With the support of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, they had made a live broadcast reality. Although this live broadcast required the target to be in a recording environment, because Sue-Yi was an archmagus, he only needed to use a magic illusion array of the same frequency as himself to create a live broadcast environment. Just like the live broadcasts on Earth, Sue-Yi's every action would be projected on the screens of the hundreds of magic illusion projectors. Hello everyone, I am Sue-Yi. I am currently sending my greetings through the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's live broadcast. Sue-Yi greeted everyone with a smile. His voice was immediately sent out by the magic illusion projectors, clearly ringing in the ears of everyone in Banta City. After the crowd was stunned for a bit, they immediately reacted and erupted in cheers and shouts that were even louder than before. Sue-Yi silently waited for around 2 minutes before the crowd gradually calmed down. Everyone, I'm very happy that everyone is willing to come to my personal press conference. Sue-Yi continued. But I think that everyone can see that because there are too many people here, this small Banta city can't hold them all. I even saw that many people find it hard to even stand straight. Everyone looked at each other and found that they were all twisted because of the crowd, so they couldn't help laughing. They didn't notice it when they were desperately trying to squeeze into the city square, but now that Sue-Yi reminded them, everyone realized just how crazy they were. I'm very happy that everyone likes and cares about me, but due to the current situation, it's clearly impossible for everyone to come to my personal press conference. Sue-Yi continued. So, I'm very sorry to tell everyone that for this personal press conference, only the invited reporters from the various newspapers can come. Other than this, please listen to the orders of the city guards and leave the old city. Hearing this, everyone was first stunned before they began to cause a ruckus. Almost everyone revealed looks of dissatisfaction. Based on what? That's right. Based on what can those reporters participate and we can't? We also want to see Chairman Su and hear what Chairman Su has to say. Right, the city square isn't for those reporters. Can't we just go in and sit? I definitely won't leave. Me too. Seeing the angry appearance of the crowd in the distance, Count Belmore, who was watching the situation from the city lord's manor, couldn't help wiping his cold sweat. This Chairman Su, couldn't he be a bit more tactful with his words? Could it be that he didn't know that being this direct would only cause people to be dissatisfied? When Count Belmore was prepared to send more troops to stabilize the situation, Sue-Yi spoke again. In order to make up for everyone's losses, our Frestec Chamber of Commerce has set up live broadcast stations in the squares outside the Old City District. After everyone leaves the Old City District, not only can you continue watching my press conference through the large-scale magic illusion projector, you can also receive some gifts from our Frestec Chamber of Commerce's staff. These gifts are divided into several grades. The lowest is a Shinfei brand magic fan and the highest is a new magic sedan. Because the gifts are limited, those who come first have a chance to win the grand prize. Everyone looked at Sue-Yi, who had a fox-like smile on the screen in a daze and didn't know what to do. This was their first time hearing about this so-called reward event. Moreover, the lowest grade prize was a Shinfei brand magic fan and the highest grade was a magic sedan. The new flyer was actually this generous? The hesitation in most people's hearts lasted for less than half a minute before it turned into a desire for the prize. It was about to enter the hot summer season, so if they could obtain a magic fan, it would without a doubt make the summer much better. Even if they didn't use it, they could sell this free Shinfei brand magic fan and get 1 or 2 gold coins. If their luck was a bit better and they received an even better gift, or even the highest grade magic sedan. The crowd surged again, but this time they didn't move towards the city square, rather they moved out of the old city. Count Belmore looked at Su-yi, who came back from Shinfei in a daze, and only after a while did he say something. Chairman Su, did you already plan this? Of course not. Su-yi shook his head. If I had already planned this, there wouldn't have been this kind of situation today. Then the gift-giving event you mentioned just now, this is an exhibition that our company has already planned ahead of time. It's used to warm up for the upcoming summer season. Now I just need to have the company's staff change the items that were originally for the exhibition into gifts. There isn't any difficulty at all. You can be assured. I believe in the abilities of your new flyer staff, only. Count Belmore licked his lips, not knowing what kind of expression he should make to express his thoughts. Only Chairman Su, you actually solved this crisis this easily and even helped your new flyer advertise. This really makes me admire you. Sui laughed and waved his hand. It's just a small matter, it's not that big of a deal. Perhaps it is a small matter to Chairman Su, but to me, it is a good lesson. Originally, I thought that to deal with these people who have almost lost their minds, I could only use violence to suppress them, but I didn't expect to be like Chairman Su, paying a little bit of benefit and coaxing them. Oh, persuading them all to leave, it really opened my eyes. Sui was too lazy to care about the word coax that Count Belmore mentioned, because to be honest, this method wasn't much different from coaxing. The only difference was that coaxing didn't have to pay any real benefits, while Sui paid some insignificant real benefits. As for Count Belmore's praise, he didn't dare to accept it. In the end, he only learned part of the experience from similar group events on Earth. Count Belmore didn't think of this method because to the nobles of the signs, the commoners weren't worthy of being treated seriously, so they naturally only needed to use violence to suppress them. Although the crowd in the old city quickly left because of Su Yi's small promise of a gift, there were still this many people, and it would take quite a bit of time for them all to leave. It wasn't until 11 o'clock in the morning, an hour and a half past the scheduled time of the press conference, that the crowd in the old city retreated and returned to normal. However, this normal state didn't include the city square. In this huge square with more than 10,000 square meters, it was still full of people. With a casual glance, there should be close to 10,000 people. It seems that not everyone is willing to leave. Count Belmore pointed at the crowd on the city light and sighed. Chairman Su, do we need to drive away those irrelevant people? That's not necessary, as long as the press conference can be held normally. Su-yi shook his head and glanced at Count Belmore. Count Belmore understood and made an inviting gesture to Su-yi. The two went downstairs together, walked out of the city lord's mansion, and walked toward the city square about 500 meters away from the gate of the city lord's mansion. As soon as the two walked out of the gate of the city lord's mansion, they immediately attracted the attention of countless people. More than 10,000 people in and around the city square were all focused on Su-yi. It could be said that he was truly the center of attention. At this time, a tall figure strode out from the city square and came to Su-yi with a big smile. Su-yi opened his arms and hugged him tightly. Chapter 1142. Hey, old friend, I called you all the way here today. Sister-in-law Ria wouldn't blame me, right? After letting go, Su-yi spoke with a smile. To be called an old friend by Su-yi, other than Heinz who had founded the new flyer with him, who else could it be? Hearing Su-yi's question, Heinz broke out in laughter. Ria already found me annoying at home, so she chased me out early in the morning. Then aren't you homeless today? Su-yi joked while looking over Heinz. Because Heinz had spent most of his time with Ria in a secluded valley outside Banta City after retiring, he wasn't willing to be disturbed by others. Adding in the fact that Su-yi was normally very busy and rarely came to Banta City, the last time he saw him was already 2 years ago. Now that they were meeting again after 2 years, Su-yi found that although Heinz's hair was a bit whiter and the wrinkles on his face were a bit deeper, his overall appearance wasn't bad. He looked very healthy, which made him feel much more assured. Heinz was almost 70 this year, which for signs who had a low lifespan, was already considered very old. To be able to maintain such a physical and mental state at this age, the biggest contribution was that he was much richer than the average person and had enough conditions to protect his body. Of course, this money came from his shares in the New Flyer. After the two exchanged a few more words, they walked to the stage that had been set up in the center of the city square. The countless reporters gathered in the city square saw this scene, and they all lowered their heads to write. Today was Su Yi's first time holding a press conference, so it must be an event with great news value and historical significance. In this event, Heinz, who was a true senior member of the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce, as well as another major shareholder, had a very special meaning, so naturally it was worth recording. Heinz's appearance made the reporters even more curious about this press conference. If this was really Su Yi's personal press conference, why did he also invite Heinz? Everyone's eyes were focused on Su Yi, who had already sat down in the chair in the sky, waiting for him to speak. Su Yi looked around and confirmed that his image was projected on the 4 large magic illusion projectors around the city square. With a faint smile, he casually cast a sound amplification spell. Hello everyone, I am Su Yi. I welcome everyone to this press conference that I'm holding in my name. Seeing that Su Yi deliberately paused, the reporters under the stage immediately gave thunderous applause. Su Yi's heart filled with joy. Although he had personally hosted a New Flyer product conference a long time ago, the New Flyer back then didn't receive as much attention as it did now, so the response was naturally far from what it was now. After the applause calmed down, Su Yi's eyes swept across the ordinary citizens around the city square and continued, "To be honest, I expected this press conference to receive attention, but I didn't think it would receive this much attention. Originally, I only wanted to use this press conference to express some of my views. To put it bluntly, I just wanted to chat with everyone." The reporters under the stage were shocked. Chat? Even if Su Yi really just wanted to chat, with his identity as the president of the New Flyer, any word he said would have a very big impact. Especially in the magic machine industry, any action of the New Flyer would affect the development of the magic machine industry on the continent. There were countless countries and countless people that were focused on the New Flyer, watching its every move. Su Yi, as the president of the New Flyer, even if he said something that wasn't important, it would be analyzed by the other countries and people of the continent, understanding the meaning behind it. So even if Su Yi casually said that he was just chatting, in the eyes of others, they definitely wouldn't think of it this way. But before expressing my views, what I want to do first is to reminisce a bit, Su Yi said. The reporters under the stage revealed knowing smiles at the same time. Not a single person was surprised. When Su Yi announced that he would be holding a press conference today, there were many newspapers that had analyzed this matter in detail. Very quickly, there were many newspapers that had deduced some things. Why did Su Yi choose today to hold this press conference in Banta City and not in Shinfei City? The answer was very simple. It was because the 18th of June was the day the New Flyer was established. And Banta City was where the New Flyer was established. The reason why Su Yi had invited Heinz, who had been in seclusion for many years, was clearly to commemorate this point. As expected, Su Yi turned to look at Heinz before continuing with a smile. 23 years ago, Heinz and I established the New Flyer in Banta City. Now that 23 years have passed, the New Flyer has already become a company with some fame in the signs, which makes me very happy. I chose this day and chose to hold this press conference in Banta City because I wanted to use this special day to reminisce about the days of 23 years ago. After saying this, Su Yi suddenly revealed a self-deprecating smile. Some people say that once a person starts reminiscing about the past, it means that they are old. Indeed, the New Flyer has been established for 23 years, and even I am almost 50 years old, so I am indeed old. Everyone under the stage looked at Su-yi on the stage with strange expressions. Su-yi had a head of bright black hair, and there wasn't a single wrinkle on his face. His eyes were bright, his skin was rosy, and his lips were strong. No matter how one looked at it, he was at most a young man in his early 30s. Compared to Heinz, who had a head of silver hair, wrinkles, and age spots, Su-yi was simply too young. If he didn't take the initiative to mention it, no one would have thought that he was a middle-aged man who was about to turn 50. Of course, this was all because Su-yi had already become an archmagus. It's said that the moment a magician became an archmagus, they would grasp the truth of magic in this world. Because of this, their lifespan would be greatly increased, and they could even keep their youth forever. However, if a normal magician could become an archmagus, they would be at least 50, 60, or 70 years old. Even if they became an archmagus at this time, they would already look like an old man. However, Su-yi was different. He had become a great magician in his early 30s and an archmagus in his 40s. In addition, he had always maintained his appearance well, allowing him to maintain his youthful appearance. According to rumors, Su-yi had a good relationship with the elves. It was said that he had received a special blessing from the elves, allowing him to obtain part of the elves' secret of longevity. This allowed him to live longer than most archmagi and maintain his youthful appearance. This point was proven by the fact that Su-yi's wives maintained their youthful and beautiful appearances. If it weren't for all these special conditions, even if Su-yi didn't look like a middle-aged man nearing 50 and show obvious signs of old age, he wouldn't look so young. Of course, this was something that no one could be envious of. Disregarding everything else, there were only 22 people on the continent who could become an archmagus. Although I'm old, my heart hasn't aged. Su-yi ignored the strange expressions of the people below the stage and continued with a smile. For a person, 23 years is a long time. It can be considered a third of one's life. However, for a merchant guild, this is only the beginning. New Flyer is only 23 years old now. In my eyes, it is only the beginning. It still has an extremely long lifespan. Perhaps 100 years, or a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years. The reporters below the stage looked at each other and hesitated for a moment before recording Su-yi's words. With New Flyer's current state, there wouldn't be many people who would object to calling it the largest merchant guild on the continent. However, New Flyer was still an exceptionally young merchant guild. Just as Su-yi had said, 23 years was only the beginning for a merchant guild. Although New Flyer's current development was very good, no one could guarantee that it would continue to develop steadily in the coming days. As Su-yi had said, it had a history of over 100 years, or even a few hundred years, or even a few thousand years. This was an unknown. There were many factors that affected New Flyer's development, and the most important one was that Su-yi would truly grow old one day, or even die. When Su-yi was no longer around, would New Flyer still be able to choose the most correct path of development and develop steadily and quickly like it had in its 23 years of history? Looking at Su-yi, who had become slightly emotional after talking about the history of New Flyer's development, and hearing him describe the difficulties and dangers that New Flyer had encountered over the years, the reporters below the stage all had their own thoughts. Most of the reporters weren't very interested in the history of New Flyer's 23 years of development because it had already been thoroughly researched by countless people on signs, and there were almost no secrets to speak of. There were even people who wrote a book to introduce and analyze this point. The final conclusion was that a large part of the reason why New Flyer could develop to its current state was because of Su-yi. If it wasn't for Su-yi's unimaginable foresight that led New Flyer to develop ahead of time, New Flyer definitely wouldn't have become what it was now. Therefore, what everyone was most concerned about was Su-yi himself. Su-yi had just mocked himself by saying that he was already old. Then, had he considered what New Flyer would do if he really became old? Chapter 1143. Su Yi's nostalgia for the past did not last long. He pulled Hines aside and talked about some trivial things that happened when the new flyer was founded 23 years ago, leaving a lot of room for the reporter's imagination. Then, he ended the nostalgic time. "All right, the time for the old people is over." The reporters all burst into laughter, then focused their attention and stared at Su Yi with their eyes wide open. They knew that it was finally time for the main topic of the day. Next, let's get into the main topic of today's press conference. Actually, like I said just now, I want to have a chat with everyone. Su Yi paused for a moment, his eyes sweeping across the audience. Seeing that all the reporters, including the uninvolved civilians, were looking at him attentively, he nodded with satisfaction. "When I was young, my teacher told me that when I was chatting with people, it's best to have a clear idea of what I want to talk about this time, so that I can have a clear conversation. So, before we officially start the chat, I want to confirm the main idea of this chat and share it with everyone." The reporters all picked up their pens and paper, ready to take notes at any time. "There is only one main idea, and that is to discuss with everyone what magic represents in my mind. But regarding this main idea, there are a few topics that I will talk about separately. The first one is about magicians. I think that in your minds, or perhaps in the minds of most people on the Science continent, most of your understanding of magicians is that they are people who control mysterious magic and have strong destructive might." Just like this, Su Yi flipped his palm, and everyone immediately felt that something was wrong. They all looked up and saw that the sky had turned into a glaring fiery red, as if a meteor would fall at any time. Most of the reporters below the stage were knowledgeable, and soon, some of them shouted in surprise. "Heavenly fire descends! This is a forbidden fire spell." Hearing the cries of surprise, Su Yi smiled and retracted his hand. The red clouds in the sky instantly retreated, and everything returned to normal. Magicians have great power, great destructive power, and can even decide the outcome of a war. So in the eyes of many, magicians bring fear and panic. This is not strange at all. But in my opinion, this is a completely different matter. Su Yi flipped his palm again, this time condensing a small fireball in his palm. Magicians do have great power, but this power can't only be used for destruction, right? At this time, a new flyer employee beside him took out a frying pan from nowhere and placed it flat on top of the fireball in Su Yi's palm. The temperature of the fireball was very high, and steam was produced from the heat of the frying pan. Then, another employee carried a pot of oil in one hand. He first poured some oil into the frying pan, and then he skillfully cracked the eggs. A moment later, the two fresh and tender poached eggs were cooked, and a trace of fragrance wafted from the high platform. The reporters below the stage looked at the situation on the stage in shock. Their faces were full of confusion. What was Su Yi doing? In front of all these people, he was trying to use magic to fry eggs? Su Yi took a bowl from the employee and placed the two eggs in the bowl. Then he raised the bowl to show the people below the stage. "You all must be very curious as to why I would do this. Actually, if you were in school and you were hungry in the middle of the night, but because there was no stove you couldn't make anything to eat, then you would understand why I would do this." The people below the stage had strange expressions. After all this time, this was related to Su Yi's school experience? Which school did Su Yi go to before? It seemed to be an unknown school called the Sennheiser School. Don't laugh. The first time I realized that magic didn't have to be used for destruction and could be used for other things, I was inspired by the experience of frying eggs in the dormitory. It wouldn't be exaggerated to say that the appearance of the first magic fan and the establishment of the new flyer, as well as the appearance of more magic machines, all originated from these two fried eggs. Hearing Su Yi's explanation, the people below the stage finally understood. The reporters quickly recorded this down. This was a very newsworthy topic related to the new flyer, it was enough to write a large article. After this incident, I discovered that magic can also be used for other more meaningful things. This led me to make more associations, and then I did more research in this area. When I was studying in the academy, I had already made a lot of strange magic tools. Only no one cared about these things at that time, until I came to Banta City and made the first magic fan. As for the development of the new flyer, I don't need to say much. I think everyone is clear on this. What I want to say is that through this matter, as well as the use of the various magic machines that the new flyer developed, it proves my point that magic shouldn't only be used for destruction. The value of a magician shouldn't only be used for destruction and deterrence, so it shouldn't be used on the battlefield. A reporter under the stage suddenly raised his hand. Sui looked over and found that it was a reporter from the Banta Times, so he nodded to him. That reporter quickly stood up and asked in a loud voice, "Chairman Su, is this the reason why your new flyer worked with the two empires and the two magician organizations to issue the Magicians' Peace Treaty?" "Yes." Sui nodded with a serious look. "In my opinion, magicians have such a mysterious thing like magic, but they use it for destruction and war. This is simply a waste of the talent that the heavens have given us. So I hope that magicians won't keep doing this and should use their talent for things that benefit others." "Then do you think that the thing that benefits others is to enter the magic machine industry and research magic machines?" that reporter asked. "No, the thing that benefits others is not limited to magic machines. There are many other things that can be done. But based on the current situation, researching magic machines is the most efficient and most fruitful method. What do you think?" Sui asked back. That reporter and the other reporters under the stage fell into deep thought. They had to admit that Sui was right. The magicians of the signs hadn't considered this matter before, so naturally they didn't know how to use magic to benefit others. Now that Sui and his new flyer had provided the new magic machine industry, it could be considered a perfect solution to this problem, so naturally it was the best method without a doubt. Seeing that the reporter had sat down and stopped asking questions, Sui continued, "Let's return to the topic of understanding magicians. To most people, magicians represent destruction, but to me, every magician is a precious talent that has the potential to become a researcher or engineer for the Chamber of Commerce. To others, a magician's value is determined by his level of magic and the power of his magic. But to me, what determines his value is his deep understanding of magic, as well as his creativity in the application of magic. Speaking of which, let's move on to the second topic, and that is, what exactly is magic?" If the people under the stage still had some confusion on their faces when the first topic was brought up, then when the second topic was brought up, the people under the stage were all focused and listening attentively. Sui was now one of the strongest magicians on the continent, and according to rumors, he had once defeated several magicians from two empires. He was even hailed as the strongest magician on the continent. The analysis of magic that came out of his mouth was undoubtedly very valuable. Actually, this topic is for the magicians on the continent. Of course, it's impossible for me to gather all the magicians on this continent and have them listen to my lecture. Therefore, I've gathered all the reporters from the newspapers in hopes that you can spread my words to all the magicians on the continent through the major newspapers. The reporters below the stage all revealed a proud smile. Sui placing such importance on them naturally made them feel honored. Thinking of the first newspaper on the continent, the Banta Times, that was also here was personally founded by Sui, these reporters felt a sense of closeness towards Sui. However, Sui's expression suddenly became serious. Because the following words are mainly for the magicians of the continent, I want to make a serious request to you. I don't want you to make any changes to these words, and you have to publish them in the major newspapers without missing a single word. There can't be a single mistake. Do you understand what I mean? The faces of the reporters under the stage turned cold, and they quickly took back the smiles on their faces. Although Su Yi's words were a bit overbearing, with his powerful strength and prestige, adding in the fact that the new flyer far surpassed the status of the major newspapers, there wasn't a single newspaper that dared to go against his request. But when Su Yi said that not a single word could be changed, the reporters were excited. Su Yi had given this serious order, which meant that what he was about to say was very important. Moreover, Su Yi had said that these words were for all the magicians on the continent, so as long as these words were published, it would attract the attention of all the magicians. Even those noble magicians were paying attention, so naturally normal people would be even more curious. Like this, would they need to worry about the sales of the newspaper? After understanding this, all the reporters' eyes lit up as they looked at Su Yi. Chapter 1144. It's not polite to say that most of the magicians on the continent don't understand what magic is at all. Su Yi's first words made the crowd fall into a deathly silence. Whether it was the reporters or the citizens on the side, they all looked at Su Yi in shock, looking like they didn't dare believe this. This Su Yi. Did he know what he was talking about? Even if he was the peak arch-magus on the continent and could defeat many arch-magi, being called the strongest magician on the continent by many people, he couldn't be this arrogant, right? Saying that most magicians didn't understand what magic was? Could it be that only he understood? After the shock, the crowd under the stage became noisy. The reporters whispered to each other, expressing their different understandings of Su Yi's words. However, no matter who it was, they all felt that Su Yi's words were too excessive. It really wasn't something that should be said in public. The reporter from the Banta Times, who asked the question, didn't even raise his hand as he stood up to ask Su Yi in a loud voice, "Chairman Su, what do you mean by this?" "What do I mean? Of course it means what it means," Su Yi naturally replied. The crowd fell into silence again. That reporter was quite choked up by Su Yi's words. After pausing, he continued to ask, "Chairman Su, can I understand this as you looking down on the magicians of the continent?" Su Yi couldn't help smiling. The Signs newspaper industry had only developed for over 10 years, it was much worse compared to Earth, but these reporters had learned how to dig holes. Even if it was a reporter from the Banta Times, that should be closer, he wasn't polite at all. However, it was like he didn't hear the meaning in the reporter's words at all as he nodded with a smile. "Yes, I am looking down on them." This answer was like throwing a flame into a pot of oil, instantly causing the restless atmosphere under the stage to explode. For a moment, countless noises rang out, causing the huge city square to become a pot of chaotic porridge. Su Yi kept a smile on his face as he looked at the chaotic reporters below the stage. He thought to himself that these guys really reacted as he had expected. Heinz on the side also looked at Su Yi in surprise. Although he had worked with Su Yi for many years and knew that this fellow would often have strange ideas and say things that people found unbelievable, he was still very surprised by what he said just now. He knew very well that Su Yi was not an arrogant person. On the contrary, he was very calm at all times. He could clearly judge the situation from all sides and then weigh the pros and cons. Therefore, if it wasn't necessary, he shouldn't have said something that would cause many people to be dissatisfied. But what was the need for him to say these words? Perhaps feeling Heinz's gaze, Su Yi turned around and gave him a slight smile. Then, he reached out and patted the back of Heinz's hand, indicating that he could rest assured. Heinz instantly felt his mood calm down. Su Yi had this kind of charm. He could always give people enough confidence to make others believe that his choice and approach were correct. And for so many years, although his choice and approach might have puzzled everyone at first, in the end, he had never disappointed anyone. So, Heinz sat back down and calmly looked at the chaotic reporters below the stage. He quietly waited for Su Yi's next move. After a moment, the reporters seemed to have reacted. Dozens of reporters stood up at the same time, and even more reporters raised their hands at the same time. Chairman Su, what you said, Chairman Su, I think you, Chairman Su. A lot of questions blurted out, but Su-yi just waited quietly for a while. Then, he smiled and raised his hand to quiet the crowd again. I know that you must have a lot of doubts about my words, and that is understandable. But I don't plan to answer the questions one by one, so please sit down and wait for me to continue. The reporters who had already stood up looked at each other and sat down one by one. The reporters who had raised their hands also put their hands back down one by one. Everyone's eyes once again focused on Su-yi, waiting for his answer with rapt attention. You reporters may only feel puzzled, but I believe that after hearing what I said, the other magicians on the continent are not puzzled, but dissatisfied. The reporters below the stage couldn't help but roll their eyes at Su-yi. Nonsense, you're openly looking down on other magicians, are you not allowing them to be dissatisfied? But no matter how dissatisfied my fellow magicians on the continent are, I still insist on my point of view. The majority of magicians don't understand magic at all, and that is the truth. Su-yi's unyielding tone gave the reporters a jolt. Of course, they knew that Su-yi wasn't crazy. There must be a reason for him to say this. When it comes to understanding magic, on the battlefield before, I had a discussion with the arch-magi of the two empires and we came to a conclusion. The magic theories that have been passed down for thousands of years on the science continent are already outdated and can't be used in this new era. From now on, we need to establish a brand new theoretical system of magic, and use a different method to understand and research magic. Hearing that Su-yi had actually discussed this problem with the archmages of the two empires on the battlefield, the reporters below the stage were first stunned, then came to a realization. No wonder Su-yi dared to say such mocking words in front of everyone. It turned out that he'd already discussed his point of view with the archmages of the two empires, and it looked like he'd obtained the approval of those archmages. If this was the case, then Su-yi's point of view had already obtained the approval of almost half of the archmages on the continent. At the same time, apart from Su-yi, New Flyer also had two archmages in Mentor Carmilla and Salader Cray the sorcerer. Su-yi's point of view would obviously obtain their approval. In this way, Su-yi had obtained the approval of more than half of the archmages. The archmages naturally had an unparalleled guiding significance to the other magicians on the continent. If the archmages had approved of this point of view, no matter how unconvinced the other magicians were, they didn't have the courage or capital to resist. At most, they could only curse in their hearts while seriously studying the point of view that the archmages had thrown out. The so-called change of method isn't as simple as changing some magical materials, magical containers, or magical attribute. It's as simple as... Su-yi pointed at his own head. Changing the way one views magic. What is magic? It sounds mystical and mysterious when studied, but at the end of the day, magic is just a tool. It's no different from the shovels and scissors in the hands of ordinary people. The expressions of the people below the stage became strange once again. Comparing magic to a shovel and scissors? Wasn't this lowering the level of magic too much? Only by understanding how magic is formed can one use it correctly. This is the mentality that we, as magicians, must maintain when studying magic. As for the specifics, it shouldn't be described with vague words like feeling, perception, general, and so on. It should be more specific, like how many magical elements there are in a certain magic, how dense it is, and how much tension there is between the magical elements. Only by understanding these questions can one be considered to truly understand magic. As for the new method of magic research, I proposed a brand new name when I discussed it with the archmages of the two empires. It's called the scientific view of magic, which is to use a scientific approach to studying magic, and not an emotional one. What is science? I won't explain too much here. If you want to know, you only need to look at the magic machines that New Flyer produces to know a thing or two. And to study magic with a scientific attitude, we have to study every magic spell to the same degree as the magic machines produced by our Chamber of Commerce. We have to be precise, and meticulous, without any errors or vague definitions. Only then can we be considered to have truly studied magic thoroughly. But this is still far from enough. Right now, apart from our New Flyer, there is no such thing as a true theoretical system of magic in the signs. Therefore, I hope that all the magicians on the continent can learn how to study magic scientifically in the coming days, and learn how to use magic scientifically. Take note, when I say study magic, I don't mean for everyone to study how to increase the destructive power of magic, because that's meaningless. What I hope for everyone to study is how to use magic to make people's lives more convenient. According to the internal division of New Flyer, we should pay more attention to the use of magic in the civilian world. To be honest, I've always felt that many of the magicians on this continent are very stupid, or rather, very selfish. The vast majority of the people on this continent are still in a situation where they can't even fill their stomachs, yet these magicians, who possess power that far surpasses that of ordinary people, only know how to desperately study magic all day long, and bully and even slaughter ordinary people. Don't you feel ashamed of this? I hate this, so I'd rather spend a lot of effort to chase all the magicians away from the battlefield, forcing everyone to study things that can improve the lives of ordinary people, and forcing everyone to enter the magic machine industry. As for what New Flyer, or rather, what I hope the magic machine industry should look like and what it should do, that is the third topic I want to talk about today. This topic is, what is our goal? Chapter 1145. The goal of the New Flyer? Some of the reporters below the stage were confused, while others were shocked. This topic could be big or small, and it all depended on what Sui said. Regarding the goal of the New Flyer, perhaps in the eyes of many people, this is something that doesn't need to be discussed or explained. Because in the end, we are just a merchant guild. And as a merchant guild, our goal is of course to make money. That's right, I admit that the original intention of establishing the New Flyer was to make money. Even now, I have always emphasized that I am a merchant. The reporters below the stage couldn't help but roar with laughter. The confirmation of Su Yi's identity had always been a controversial topic on the signs. At the beginning, Su Yi and the New Flyer weren't famous, so naturally no one cared about Su Yi's identity. But later on, when the New Flyer started to gain some fame, everyone discovered that the chairman of the Merchant Guild, Su Yi, was actually a pretty good mage. When Su Yi's rank as a mage wasn't that high, only a few people lamented that as a noble mage, Su Yi had to run off to run a merchant guild, and felt that it was a pity that he was lowering his status. But when Su Yi's talent for magic gradually revealed itself, and his magic level rapidly increased, to the point that he became an adept mage in a few short years, and then a great mage in his early 30s, the controversy regarding Su Yi's identity immediately grew. The Sorcerers Guild and the other mages on the continent generally believed that since Su Yi was a powerful great mage, he was first and foremost a mage. As for his identity as a merchant, it was only a side effect. Mages had always looked down on merchants, and this was a matter of course for many people. But Su Yi had always emphasized to everyone that he was only a merchant, and that his identity as a mage was only a side effect. This undoubtedly made the Magicians Guild and the other magicians on the continent feel somewhat displeased. Su Yi was a great magician, but he always emphasized that he was only a merchant. What about the reputation of the magicians? How were the mages supposed to express their sense of superiority? Therefore, the magicians would always emphasize that Su Yi was a powerful magician, and that he only opened the New Flyer to research magic machines. On the other hand, most commoners were more likely to accept Su Yi's identity as the president of the New Flyer as a merchant. This was because the various magic machines produced by the new flyer were closely related to the lives of commoners. In the eyes of most commoners, they would rather have a mage like Su-Yi who was willing to be a merchant. At the beginning of the debate, the magicians had the upper hand, because they had a higher status in the signs. This was common knowledge. But as the Frestec Chamber of Commerce became more and more famous, their influence became more and more. When the entire continent talked about Su-Yi, the first thing they thought of was his status as the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's chairman. There were many times that they completely ignored the fact that he was a powerful magician. When the news that Su-Yi had become an archmage was released, the controversy surrounding Su-Yi's identity once again escalated. There were still thousands of great magicians in the signs. It was barely acceptable that a great magician like Su-Yi didn't care about his identity as a great magician, but there were only 20 or so archmages in the signs. If Su-Yi, as an archmage, kept emphasizing his identity as a merchant and ignored his identity as a magician, then where would he place all the mages on the continent? How would they deal with this? However, Su-Yi still insisted on his identity as a merchant, as if becoming an archmage wasn't a big deal in his eyes. This point of view was further reflected in the war with the two empires. The new flyer's guards used the ironclad truth to tell everyone that magicians were no longer able to determine victory or defeat on the battlefield. Afterwards, the new flyer presided over the signing of the Magicians' Peace Pact, completely removing magicians from the battlefield. Thus, everyone understood that the identity of magicians was indeed nothing to Su-Yi. What he truly cared about was his identity as the president of the new flyer. I won't hide it from everyone. The new flyer has earned quite a bit of money these past few years. In fact, in recent years, its annual net profit has exceeded 100 million gold coins. Below the stage, there was a sound of people sucking in cold air. Although everyone knew that magic machines were very popular in the signs, and that the new flyer would definitely earn a lot of money, no one had thought that the new flyer would make so much money. 100 million gold coins. This was a terrifying number that no one dared think of in their entire lives, not to mention that this was just the net profit of the new flyer in a single year. So to say, from the perspective of a merchant, I am already very successful and the money I've earned is enough to guarantee that I don't have to worry about anything in my life. Then the question is, after earning enough money, what should I do? Everyone under the stage revealed looks of understanding. Su-Yi's topic had without a doubt reached the height of his life goal. With his current status and wealth, it was normal for him to consider this problem. This meant that he was planning to achieve his life goal through the new flyer. Then what was it specifically? After considering it for a long time, I thought of the situation when I first created the new flyer. When I first created the new flyer, the reason was that I wanted to make a magic fan to relieve the heat of the summer. After that, our Shinfei company developed all kinds of magic machines, helping many people solve problems that had troubled them for many years. Among them, the one that made me the most satisfied and proud was the agricultural magic machine. Hearing Su-Yi mention the agricultural magic machine, whether it was the reporters or the surrounding citizens, they couldn't help revealing a trace of respect as they looked at Su-Yi. Su-Yi was right. Of all the magic machines that the new flyer had invented, the one that everyone welcomed and changed the lives of countless people was without a doubt the agricultural magic machine. Because of the appearance of the agricultural magic machine, the Lampari Kingdom's farming method had completely changed. The grain yield had greatly increased and countless people no longer had to suffer from hunger. It could be said that it had completely changed the appearance of the Lampari Kingdom. Then with the spread of the agricultural magic machine, there were countless countries that used the agricultural magic machine. With the fertilizer produced by the elves, it solved the food crisis of many countries. It made it so that there hadn't been any large-scale famine in the signs for many years. To countless people, not mentioning anything else, the new flyer's move could be said to have surpassed all the other companies. There were even many people who called Su-yi the new savior. The agricultural magic machine is very good, but I feel that it is far from enough. To me, humans living in this world can't just be satisfied with eating, drinking, and wearing warm clothes. Apart from this, we should have some higher goals. Everyone under the stage looked at each other in blank dismay. Su-yi's words were a bit too much. For many people in the signs, being able to eat, drink, and wear warm clothes was already a wish that was hard to achieve. Even in the current signs, there were countless people who starved to death because they didn't have food, freezing to death in the cold wind. Su-yi being able to use the agricultural magic machine to increase the grain yield and solve the problem of food and clothing for countless people was already a great merit. Now he was actually saying that humans should have higher goals. This was simply speaking without any pain. I know that you all have doubts about what I've said. Su-yi seemed to see through everyone's thoughts, so he continued with a faint smile. Indeed, to solve the basic problem of everyone's livelihood, it definitely isn't an easy matter. But New Flyer and I have always worked hard, and we will continue working hard in the future. I separated the sorcerers from the battlefield in the hope that they could devote themselves to something more beneficial to the development of the human race. Believe me, as long as there is enough time, it isn't that hard to solve the basic problem of food and clothing. The reporters under the stage had strange expressions, not knowing what kind of expression they should use to face Su-yi. In theory, Su-yi was right. But the situation in reality was very complicated. For the people of the signs, could they really develop themselves like he thought? Now we should talk about the topic I mentioned before. Su-yi suddenly looked up at the sky and fell into a daze for a while. The people under the stage curiously looked up with him, but they only saw a clear sky without a single cloud for 10,000 miles. After a while, Su-yi lowered his head and said, "Everyone, do you know what the land under our feet looks like?" Everyone looked at each other, and after a while, the reporter from the Banta Times tentatively raised his hand. Su-yi gave him a nod. "Chairman Su, I remember that you once published an article in the Shinfei Magic Machine Industry Weekly discussing this problem. In that article, you said that what we are standing on is a giant sphere and the signs is just a piece of land on this giant sphere. On this sphere, there is an endless sea. Am I right?" Without waiting for Su-yi's reply, there was an uproar under the stage. Among these reporters, there were many people who had read the Shinfei Magic Machine Industry Weekly, but there were few who had noticed that Su-yi had published this article. Even if there were people who had seen it, they would have thought that Su-yi's brain was cramping, which was why he would say this kind of nonsense. What kind of joke was this? There is a giant sphere under our feet? If it really was like this, wouldn't the people in the north have already fallen down? Su-yi noticed the different expressions of the people under the stage and revealed a faint smile. He thought that it wasn't easy for the people of this world to learn about astronomy and geography. But he had an advantage now, which was that with his status, no matter what he said, there would be people who would seriously listen and analyze it. "Yes, I did publish this article and said this." Su-yi gave a slight nod to the reporter from the Banta Times, before indicating for him to sit down. "As for the planet under our feet, our Frestec Chamber of Commerce will have a voyage around the world to prove this to everyone." There was another uproar under the stage. The New Flyer was actually going to sail around the world? Although they didn't understand what this meant, just based on the name, they could tell that this was a large investment. Could it be that Su-yi was investing this much just to prove that there was a planet under everyone's feet and that this planet was round? Su-yi didn't care about the reactions of the people under the stage as he continued. "As for today, we are talking about something deeper. If everyone looks up, you should see the sun hanging high in the sky. Then if I told you that the sun is also a giant glowing planet and it is countless times bigger than the planet under our feet, what would you think?" Everyone looked at Su-yi in a daze, not reacting at all. Chapter 1146. It had to be said, teaching astronomy and geography to people who didn't have any foundation was a very difficult matter. Sui spoke for a while on stage, but the reporters and the crowd were all stunned. Their heads were filled with confusion, not seeming like they understood at all. Of course, Sui didn't expect them to understand right now. The reason why he said all this was just to give these people a basic idea. After half an hour, Sui stopped. The crowd was silent for a while before the reporter from the Banta Times suddenly stood up. Chairman Sui, as soon as he opened his mouth, he closed it again and had a hesitant look on his face. Sui nodded at him with a smile. Just ask if you don't understand. That reporter hesitated for a while before shaking his head. It was like he had made a large decision as he asked, Chairman Sui, you said that we are standing on a planet and the sun above us is an even bigger planet. Moreover, the planet under our feet should be revolving around the sun and the stars in the night sky should be giant balls of fire like the sun. Although I don't understand these things, I feel that your words are quite reasonable. Only, where did you learn these things? This question attracted the attention of everyone under the stage. That's right, although the things Sui said sounded very powerful and opened everyone's eyes, understanding that the world they were in was a mysterious and colorful world. How did Sui know this? If I said that I accidentally obtained an ancient inheritance and obtained this knowledge, would you believe me? Sui asked back with a smile. That reporter from the Banta Times, and the other reporters under the stage, as well as the surrounding citizens all looked at Sui in a daze, with a "you're joking with me" expression. If there was an ancient inheritance, it was impossible for there to be no traces of it in the signs. Then again, why didn't Sui mention it before and why did he say it all at once? Sui didn't expect anyone to believe his explanation at all. Without waiting for anyone to ask, he continued, as for how I obtained this knowledge, forgive me for not being able to reveal it, but I can guarantee that this knowledge is real and can be verified. The people under the stage looked at each other and no one raised any objections. With Sui's current status, there was no need for him to make this kind of joke. Moreover, his description was very attractive, completely changing people's views of the world. If this world really was as big as Sui said, there would be a universe above their heads that they couldn't see the end of. How exciting would that be? Chairman Sui, you suddenly mentioning these things. How is it related to the goal you mentioned? A reporter suddenly asked. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they reacted. That's right, Sui had been talking for a while, but how was this related to the main topic he was talking about? Of course it's related. Sui smiled. Think about it, 20 years ago, people's understanding of this world stopped at signs. They thought that other than signs, there was only an endless ocean. But ever since our new Flyers Voyage fleet proved the existence of other continents, people realized that this world is much bigger than we imagined. Next, I will prove to everyone that we are indeed standing on a sphere and there are several continents on this sphere. Each continent has different life forms and civilizations. When we have enough understanding of this planet, what I want to do next is to lead everyone to understand the starry sky above our heads. I want everyone to know that beyond the planet we're standing on, there's a world countless times bigger waiting for us to explore. Everyone followed Sui and looked up at the sky, but they could only see the blue sky due to the clear weather. They couldn't even see a single star, let alone the endless universe hidden behind the sky that Sui mentioned. The reporters realized that they couldn't keep up with Sui's train of thought anymore. What was he trying to say after talking for so long? Sui looked up at the sky again for a while before he slowly lowered his head. He looked at the thousands of reporters below the stage, at the confused civilians, and at Hines who was looking at him in shock. He took a deep breath and opened his hand. The world is so big, but we still have to squeeze into a small place like signs and fight to the death for a little bit of benefit. Do you think it's meaningful? The reporters below the stage were stunned for a while before they all revealed bitter smiles. They had to admit that the world that Su-Yi described was very beautiful and his questions were very powerful, but for the people of Signs, especially the people who controlled most of the resources on Signs, Su-Yi's words were meaningless. Yes, this world didn't only have Signs, it wasn't even just the planet under their feet. But what did this matter to them? What they could control right now were the resources on Signs. With the technology of humans on Signs, other than the New Flyer, there were no other countries or organizations that could go to the legendary new continent. So how could they obtain the resources on that continent? Su-Yi on stage revealed a smile, as his eyes were filled with understanding. In order for the people of Signs to see the true appearance of the planet under our feet, I want to announce something here. After the planned trip around the world, our new flyer will be opening up the magic ship technology to all countries, organizations, and individuals. Our new flyer invites everyone to head to the new continent on this planet, inviting everyone to explore the planet under our feet. The noise under the stage fell silent and the entire city square was filled with a deathly silence. However, this deathly silence only lasted for a few seconds before it exploded with a deafening noise. The surrounding citizens didn't have much of a reaction, but the reporters of the major newspapers all revealed looks of incomparable shock. If it was said that among the various technologies of the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce, the one that the other countries and organizations cared about the most was the military magic machine technology, then the one that came in second was the magic ship technology. When the new flyer announced that they had discovered the new continent, all of Signs had been stirred up. Everyone wanted to explore the new continent, but other than the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, no one else had a ship that could sail the seas. So everyone could only watch as the Frestec Chamber of Commerce explored the new continent. Now that Su-Yi had announced that the new flyer would be opening up the magic ship technology, didn't that mean that other countries and organizations other than the new flyer, or even individuals would have a chance to form a fleet and go to the other continent? Since the press conference had been held, it could be said that there was finally a big piece of news. After the reporters recovered from their initial shock, they all raised their hands or stood up to ask questions. Su-Yi had a smile on his face as he answered the reporters' questions about the magic ship technology, while silently complaining in his heart. He had spent most of his time preparing and expressing his feelings, but in the end, these fellows didn't know what was good for them. They weren't interested in the new world he described, they were only interested in the technology that was about to be released. But this couldn't be blamed on them. After all, the people under the stage weren't like Su-Yi who had transmigrated, grasping all the knowledge from Earth. Their knowledge of this world before the new flyer had appeared was limited to the small signs. The new flyer being able to discover the existence of the new continent was already a great shock to them. Now that they had to accept the new world that Su-Yi had instilled in them, it was clearly too hard for them. Su-Yi wasn't disappointed by this. The reporters under the stage were just microphones that he had specially found, they were responsible for spreading the ideas that he was talking about today. As long as the people of the continent knew what Su-Yi was talking about and slowly accepted it, Su-Yi would have achieved half of his goal today. He believed that after hearing the things that Su-Yi was talking about, there would be people with foresight in the signs who would understand Su-Yi's intentions and work hard according to Su-Yi's plans. When the reporters finished asking the various questions about the magic ship technology transfer, the stage gradually fell silent. Su-Yi looked over and said with a smile, "Everyone, I think that since I've already told everyone this much, everyone should understand what our goal is, right?" The reporters looked at each other with a trace of uncertainty in their eyes. Perhaps they could guess what Su-Yi wanted to say, but there wasn't a single person who dared to believe it. "Our goal is actually very simple, it's the sea of stars above us." Su-Yi pointed at the sky and said in a powerful voice, "The current us can only stay on this planet, but there will be a day when we will break through the sky above us and enter the boundless universe." The reporters looked at Sue-E in a daze, not knowing how to react. Everyone said that the New Flyers chairman Sue was a madman, but no matter how crazy a person was, he wouldn't say something like this, right? Break through the sky above us? Enter the boundless universe? They didn't even know how far the sky was, so Sue-E didn't know how far he was from his goal. Chapter 1147. It was the beginning of summer in early June. The streets of Doral were already unbearably hot under the bright sunlight. Lucian lowered his head to look at the resume in his hand. A drop of sweat rolled down from his forehead to his chin, and then dripped directly onto the resume. It happened to hit the words Phillips Academy, soaking the words until they were somewhat blurred. Staring at the line on the resume for a while, Lucian could not help but smile bitterly. Back then, in order to let him enter Phillip Academy to study, his parents had spent almost all of their savings for the past 10 years. After that, in order to pay for his tuition at Phillip Academy, which cost more than 50 gold coins a year, as well as his living expenses and other miscellaneous expenses, his parents had to wake up early and work late, working tirelessly every day. Their goal was nothing more than to hope that he could find a good job after graduating from Phillip Academy. But now, because he was about to graduate from Phillip Academy, he had come to Doral alone to seek a job after graduation. But he found that he could not find a satisfactory job at all. It was not that he could not find a job. Graduates like Lucian who had graduated from Phillip Academy, which specialized in the magic industry, were all highly sought after. After he handed his resume around in the past 3 days, he immediately received enthusiastic invitations from more than 10 chambers of commerce. However, Lucian was not satisfied with the jobs provided by these chambers of commerce, because almost all of these jobs were directly related to the installation of magic arrays in the factories. In Lucian's opinion, this kind of job could be done by any mage who had a certain level of control over magic. It did not reflect his uniqueness at all. The ideal job in Lucian's mind was, of course, to enter the Academy of Magic in New Flyer. Like those distinguished researchers, he would study the most cutting-edge magic technology every day and come into contact with the most advanced magic machines every day. Only in this way would he be worthy of the 5 years of study in Phillip Academy. Of course, Lucian was also very clear that the Academy of Magic in New Flyer was the most advanced magic research organization in Signs. With his current level, it was far from enough. But if he could not enter the Academy of Magic in New Flyer, he would have to at least join the research institutes of a few other large chambers of commerce. Therefore, Lucian had been spreading his resume everywhere these days. After discovering that this method didn't work, he focused his attention on the famous large chambers of commerce and specifically sought employment with them. However, even if these large chambers of commerce had openings in the Academy of Magic and wanted to recruit, their requirements were very high. They didn't look at Lucian, who had just graduated from the academy. Besides, Lucian wasn't a top student who graduated from a top college like the New Flight College. Naturally, he wouldn't attract much attention, so he had nothing to show for the past few days. If I still can't find a job, I'll have come here for nothing. Lucian sighed. He reached into his pocket and found that there were only 2 gold coins and a dozen silver coins left in it. This money might be enough for him to spend for a while in the small village in his hometown, but in Doral, the capital of the southern province of the Empire, which was known as the most prosperous city in the south of the Empire, it would not last for more than a few days. 2 days. If I can't find a suitable job in 2 days, even if I have to do the most boring work on the assembly line in the factory, I'll accept it. Lucian secretly gritted his teeth and made up his mind. If possible, he would like to say that it was fine if he couldn't find a job. At most, he would go back to the Phillip Academy to continue his studies. Anyway, his grades in the academy had always been good. His tutor once told him that as long as he was willing to continue his studies for a few more years and get an advanced certificate from the Philip Academy, he could choose any large Chamber of Commerce's research institute after he graduated. Even the Academy of Magic in New Flyer was not impossible. But the reality made it impossible for Lucian to make this choice. The reason was simple: he had no money. The tuition fee and living expenses for the advanced courses in the Philip Academy were higher than the ordinary courses. It was already very difficult for Lucian's family to support him to complete the ordinary courses. Of course, they couldn't afford to continue his studies. Not to mention that Lucian's little brother was already 10 years old, so he should be entering the elementary school to study the basic courses, which also required money. If Lucian went out to work now, not only could he save a large amount of tuition fees, he could also earn money to help his little brother go to school and reduce the burden on his parents. No matter how one looked at it, this was a much better choice. In addition, although his parents didn't have that intention, Lucian himself actually hoped that his 12-year-old sister would also be able to enter the academy and study. She wouldn't be like those ordinary village girls who would casually find someone to marry when they reached a certain age and then live out the rest of their lives peacefully. These things required money, so Lucian couldn't continue his studies. He could only find a job after graduating this year. Although the work of drawing magic arrays on the assembly line was dull and boring, it was still much better than the income of ordinary workers. For example, Lucian's parents were currently working in a household magic machine factory in a small town near his hometown. They worked as the most simple workers and received around 10 gold coins a month, with a maximum of 15 gold coins. As for the 5 magic technicians in the factory who were responsible for drawing magic arrays, they received a minimum wage of 30 gold coins a month, and their other benefits were much better. Lucian's current idea was that if he couldn't find a suitable job in the last 2 days, he would return to Philip Academy to finish his studies before going to the factory to apply for a job. His parents had already told his situation to the boss of the factory, and the boss was very interested in Lucian. He immediately gave him a starting wage of 25 gold coins a month. As long as Lucian agreed, he could go to work at any time. But was it really decided like this? Lucian looked up and narrowed his eyes. Looking at the bright sun in the sky, there was a trace of unwillingness that filled his heart. Every day at Philip Academy, he was incomparably diligent in his studies, not daring to waste even a single minute. He had even cruelly rejected the confessions of 2 female classmates. Could it be that he wanted to return to his hometown after graduation and spend the rest of his life there? "I'm not willing." Lucian tightly clenched his fists and took a deep breath. Although he only had 2 days left, he definitely wouldn't give up so easily. He was already luckier than many people. He had parents who were open-minded enough, willing to suffer hardships for him to finish his studies. So why couldn't he be even luckier now and find a satisfactory job in the last 2 days? As long as he performed a little better in the interview and fully displayed his excellence in the academy, there would definitely be a merchant association that would appreciate him. Lucian took a deep breath and cleared his mind of all the dejection and disappointment. Rousing his spirits, he lowered his head and prepared to continue forward. But just as he lowered his head, he suddenly saw a figure in front of him bump into him. Caught off guard, Lucian had no time to dodge and could only do his best to dodge. Bang! The 2 people's shoulders slammed into each other. That person staggered 2 steps before stabilizing himself. Lucian focused his eyes and found that the person who had suddenly bumped into him was a short middle-aged man. It seemed that he had been hit quite hard and couldn't straighten up for a long time. Just as he was about to apologize, that person turned his head and glared fiercely at Lucian. "Kid, do you have eyes? Do you know how to walk?" Lucian admitted that he had walked with his head raised and was at fault. Hearing this, he could only smile apologetically and didn't retort. The man glanced at Lucian from head to toe and seemed to think that Lucian was taller and stronger than him. He snorted again and walked away. Lucian helplessly smiled bitterly, thinking that his luck today wasn't that good. At this time, his stomach let out a soft sound. He hadn't even eaten breakfast today. He had been busy the entire morning going to various merchant associations to apply for jobs, and was now starving. Lucian rubbed his stomach and looked around. He chose a noodle shop on the corner that looked clean, but was clearly not of high quality. 3 days ago, the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce announced to the public that they had made a major breakthrough in the research of magic signal transmission. According to the situation announced by Principal Evita, the new flyer is very likely to break through the distance limit of magic signal transmission and achieve limitless transmission without any obstacles. If this is realized, it will mean that the magic signal network on the continent will enter a new stage. Regarding this, the leaders of many countries and companies have expressed. As soon as he walked into the noodle shop, the sound coming from the small household magic illusion projector attracted Lucian's attention. Seeing the beautiful figure of Principal Evita of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce that Lucian worshipped, Lucian's heart was filled with a strong sense of joy. God above, the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce was about to achieve limitless transmission of magic signals. If this was true, it would have an incomparably large effect on the magic machine industry on the continent. Just like the news said, this meant that the magic signal network on the continent would undergo an earth-shattering change and enter a new stage. Lucian's major at Philip Academy was magic signal transmission, so he had always paid attention to this information. He knew that the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce and many other countries and companies had been researching this technology, but in the end it was New Flyer that had discovered it first. Of course, this wasn't unexpected. New Flyer had a very solid foundation in the magic machine industry and magic science, so it would be strange if they weren't the first to discover it. Seeing Evita in the illusion talking to a large group of reporters with a gentle and noble temperament, Lucian couldn't help but sigh in admiration. If there is a day that I can reach the same position as Principal Evita, then I'm willing to die. Chapter 1148. No matter how envious he was, it wouldn't solve his stomach problem. Lucian looked at the illusion in a daze for a while before casually finding a place to sit down and ordering the cheapest vegetarian noodles. While waiting for the noodles to be ready, he continued to watch the news being broadcasted by the magic illusion projector. After the news was broadcasted, the image on the illusion changed and showed a scene high up in the sky. At the bottom of the screen there was a vast and majestic city. Lucian recognized at a glance that this city was the capital of the Canla Empire, Wimbledon City. Lucian had never personally seen this great capital of the empire, but he often saw it in the news, so he was naturally very familiar with it. To be familiar with a place that he had never been to before, this was something that Lucian's parents didn't even dare to think about before. Take Lucian's parents for example. The furthest they had ever been to was the third largest city in the province about 50 kilometers away from their hometown. Other than that, not to mention Wimbledon City, they had never even been to the provincial capital. If nothing had changed in this world, they would be like Lucian's grandparents, who had never left their hometown and knew almost nothing about the outside world. However, New Flyer invented the magic signal transmission network and the magic illusion projector, while the New Moon Chamber of Commerce produced the corresponding magic illusion programs. This allowed them, who had never left their hometown, to understand the world without leaving their homes. It was precisely because of those programs about education that Lucian's parents made the decision to send Lucian to Philip Academy to study, even if they couldn't buy all kinds of new household magic machines every year like their neighbors. Their lives were much harder than before. So Lucian had always been very grateful to New Flyer and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce for giving him the opportunity to leave the isolated village in his hometown and see the world with his own eyes, giving him the opportunity to change his entire life. With the image of Wimbledon City in the sky, there was also a voiceover. The Empire's Royal Guards have recently shown a batch of new small magic attack boats that they bought from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. It's reported that these small magic attack boats were developed by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce 3 years ago, representing the most advanced magic airship. They have a high speed of over 400 kilometers per hour, as well as being very flexible and having decent firepower. After being equipped with these new small magic attack boats, the battle strength of the Royal Guards in the air has without a doubt increased. This will increase the safety of Wimbledon City. There was a burst of cheers that came from the noodle shop. Lucian was surprised. He looked over the noodle shop and found that, whether it was the owner or the people eating, they were all looking at the magic illusion projector on the wall with excited looks on their faces. "Ha, this is great. With this thing, the Royal Guards will be much stronger than before." "That's right. I've heard of this thing before. It's said that it's New Flyer's most advanced magic airship. It flies very quickly and you can't even see its shadow in the blink of an eye." "Really? But the news said that its firepower isn't bad, I'm afraid." "Are you stupid? How could the news be completely honest? This is related to the top secret of our Empire's army. How could it be casually revealed to others?" That's right. Then based on this..." Hearing the discussions of the people around him, Lucian's lips twitched as he revealed a bitter smile. These fellows didn't know anything at all. What were they so excited about? The news had clearly stated that these small magic attack boats were developed by New Flyer 3 years ago. Then in these 3 years, even if New Flyer hadn't finished developing the new generation magic airship, they would have developed a new technology that could easily surpass these small magic attack boats. Then again, these things weren't the newest attack magic airships that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had, nor were they the strongest. For example, the Thunder God level heavy magic airships that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce never sold were the true overlords of the sky. According to the rumors, in the internal practice of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, the woven Thunder God level heavy magic airship could easily control the air. The other magic airships couldn't do anything to it. So as long as the other forces didn't have the same air power as the Thunder God level heavy magic airships, New Flyer would always control the air. Now everyone on the continent knew that in this new style of warfare, controlling the air was equal to controlling the initiative, which was very important in deciding the outcome of the war. Of course, this only existed in their imaginations and drills. In fact, on the current signs, there wasn't a single country or power that would go against New Flyer or even start a war with them, because that was seeking their own death. So when Lucian saw how excited the people around him were because the Royal Guards were equipped with small magic attack boats, he was really speechless. Even if the battle strength of the Royal Guards and even the entire Canla Empire's army had greatly increased, even if the people of the Empire had 10 times the courage, would they still dare to casually start a war with New Flyer? You're saying that you won't challenge New Flyer and will start a war with the other countries? Stop joking. Since New Flyer's chairman Su Yi made the famous Banta Declaration in Banta City 10 years ago, stating that their goal was to head to the Sea of Stars, deciding that the goal of the signs would be to develop the magic machine industry, there wasn't a single country that wanted to start a war. The first reason was that, if there was a country that wanted to do this, the New Flyer Guards would directly interfere and wouldn't allow the war to expand. The second reason was that the New Flyer was releasing technology related to the magic machine industry on a large scale, helping all the countries on the continent develop the magic machine industry. If there was a country that didn't rationally start a war, they would be eliminated by this era and would fall far behind the other countries. There wasn't a single country that dared take this risk, even the Canla Empire didn't dare. So when the royal guards suddenly announced that they were equipped with a batch of small magic attack boats, many people thought that it would increase the strength of the royal guards and the battle strength of the Empire's army. But for people like Lucian who had a certain understanding of the magic machine industry on the continent, it would only be used to maintain the stability of the Empire. After all, the news had mentioned that there were several riots in the Empire that had attracted the attention of the Parliament. The royal guards announcing this might have been to deter these rioters. While the surrounding people were discussing this, the boss of the noodle house didn't stop what he was doing and quickly brought the bowl of noodles that Lucian had ordered over. Lucian was already very hungry at this time, so he ignored the laughable comments of the people around him and began to eat in big mouthfuls. While eating, he looked up from time to time at the magic illusion projector, listening to the sounds coming from it. After some current news, what came after was some news about people's livelihood. Lucian didn't care about these people's livelihood news because most of it wasn't related to him and he wasn't interested in this. But when it came to the entertainment news, he couldn't help looking up for a bit. This was because in this entertainment news, there was his favorite elven star, young Miss Lenore. Looking up at young Miss Lenore, who was as beautiful as a flower and had a noble aura that was a bit light, like she didn't belong to this world, Lucian couldn't help revealing an intoxicated look. The new Moon Chamber of Commerce had made many stars famous through their magic illusion programs, but Lucian didn't care about these stars that had nothing to do with his life. Only when he saw young Miss Lenore, it was like his heart was moved and he couldn't help paying attention to her. But Lucian was very clear that his world was too different from young Miss Lenore's, so they might never meet in this life. So he could only look at her through the magic illusion, and he was already satisfied. When the news about young Miss Lenore was over, Lucian came back to his senses. He looked down and found that the human uncle sitting in front of him was looking at him with a smile. His face couldn't help turning red as he quickly lowered his head to eat his noodles in large bites. Because he was eating in a hurry, he didn't notice that the broth was still very hot. He immediately choked and spat out a mouthful of broth on the table, looking as pitiful as he could possibly be. Lucian calmed down with great difficulty and found that his clothes were stained with the broth and the table was a mess. His face turned even redder. The uncle didn't seem to mind and only shook his head with a gentle smile. He handed a tablecloth to Lucian. Lucian quickly thanked him and hurriedly cleaned up the mess on the table. "Looking at you, you should be a student of the academy, right?" After Lucian sat down again, the uncle asked with a smile. How can you tell?" Lucian was stunned. The uncle chuckled. "After a lot of experience, it's easy to see some things. It's not strange." After saying this, the uncle lowered his head and continued eating his noodles. He didn't have any intention of saying anything else. Lucian scratched his head, not understanding what was going on. Because of the small incident just now, Lucian found that he couldn't eat his bowl of noodles anymore. He could only call the boss over to pay the bill. "Sir, it's 15 silver coins. Thank you." When Lucian saw the amiable smile on the boss's face, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. "It's just a bowl of plain noodles, and it costs 15 silver coins? What a scam!" The same bowl of noodles only cost 2 silver coins at most in his hometown. But when he remembered that this was Doral, Lucian could only sigh helplessly and put his hand into his pocket. Then his face changed drastically. Chapter 1149. There should have been his last 2 gold coins and a dozen silver coins in this pocket, but at this time it had become empty, with nothing left. Lucian touched it with his hand and even opened the pocket to take a closer look, but he didn't even see a shadow of a silver coin. He suddenly panicked. This was the only money he had left. If it was gone, he wouldn't even have enough money to go home, let alone continue to stay in Doral and look for suitable job opportunities. More importantly, He couldn't even pay for the dozen silver coins in front of him now. The noodle shop owner was naturally experienced and knowledgeable. Seeing Lucian's appearance, how could he not know what had happened? The smile on his face suddenly turned cold. "Sir, please pay the bill." Lucian squeezed the pocket, a trace of cold sweat slid down from his forehead, and thoughts ran through his mind. What should I do? What should I do? Seeing that Lucian was silent, the owner's face turned colder, and the tone of his voice became slightly higher. "Sir, you're not planning to dine and dash, are you?" The other customers in the noodle shop heard the noise and looked over. Seeing Lucian's slightly panicked expression, and then looking at his washed white clothes, the crowd immediately roared with laughter. "Haha, a little poor guy wants to come here to eat and drink. Boss, you're just unlucky." "Boss, I know he doesn't have much money. I think you're going to pay for this bowl of noodles." "Hey, this guy looks decent. How can he do such a shameful thing? Could it be that you're starving?" Listening to the people around him talking, Lucian's face turned red, but he couldn't find any words to refute. The fact was that he couldn't find any money to pay the bill. Naturally, he could only bear the cold face of the owner and the ridicule of the people around him. He frowned and thought for a moment. Then he gathered his courage and said, "Boss, As soon as he opened his mouth, the uncle sitting opposite him suddenly slapped the table. "Here's a gold coin. Pay for my share in front of this young man." Lucian was stunned. The owner glanced at the uncle, wiped his hand, and put away the gold coin on the table. Then he left. When the others saw that there was no more drama to watch, they all laughed and no longer paid attention to it. Thank you." Lucian's expression was a little awkward, but he was also a little excited as he hurriedly thanked the uncle. The uncle waved his hand and looked him up and down. "Looking at you, you don't look like a freeloader. Why, are you in trouble?" Lucian calmed down and carefully thought about it. He quickly understood. It must be that wretched shorty who bumped into him on the road just now. He must have taken the opportunity to steal my money. Lucian was extremely remorseful. Before he left home, his parents had warned him countless times to be careful of thieves outside, but he didn't expect that he would still fall for it. If it weren't for this kind-hearted uncle helping him out, he would be lucky if he could get the boss to agree to pay the bill with his work. "I may have met a thief," Lucian explained with a wry smile. "Well, there are a lot of people in Doral, and there are a lot of thieves. I met one when I first came here, so it's not strange." The uncle nodded with a smile. He looked at Lucian again and continued to ask, "You should be a mage, right?" Lucian was stunned. "How did you know?" "I sense the waves of magic on you." Seeing the surprised expression on Lucian's face, the uncle pointed to himself. "Don't be surprised. I'm also a mage, but my level is not high. I'm only a level 3 mage now." Lucian nodded, but still felt a little strange. He was not surprised that the uncle, whom he had never met before, knew that he was a mage, but that he was a level 3 mage. Since the Magicians' Peace Pact was announced 10 years ago, the magicians on the continent were no longer judged by their individual strength. Instead, they were judged by the role they could play in the magic industry and the professional knowledge they had. The so-called Level 3 Magician assessment standard had long been thrown aside by the Magicians Guild, and no magician would use this standard to judge their own level. Moreover, under the leadership of New Flyer, in the new magic system that had flourished on the continent these years, the traditional rating of mages had long been outdated. It could not accurately describe a mage's ability. For example, with Lucian's current level, he would probably be a level 2 or level 3 mage according to the traditional rating, because he rarely studied those destructive spells. However, with the new magic theory education he received in Philip Academy, his understanding and mastery of magic were far beyond those traditional mages. As long as he was willing, his combat power would not be worse than a level 5 or even level 6 mage. It was just that things like battle prowess were very boring to the mages on the continent, so not many mages would seriously study it. After all, under the restrictions of the Peace Pact of Mages, mages could not participate in wars, so naturally, they could not show their destructive power. Moreover, even if they did participate in wars, in the face of all kinds of powerful military magic machines, the individual strength of a mage was simply not enough to be of much use. As for the traditional choice of joining a merchant guild as a guard, it had long been replaced by all kinds of guards equipped with light military magic machines, so mages had nothing to do with it. Moreover, rather than joining a merchant guild as a guard, it was better to join a merchant guild as a researcher, or engage in other related magic research work. The money earned was more than being a guard, and it was easier, and there was no danger to one's life. In short, it was very rare to see someone like this uncle, who used the title Level 3 Mage to introduce himself. At the very least, it was the first time Lucian had met someone like this. What? You're not familiar with the concept of a Level 3 Mage? The uncle seemed to have seen through Lucian's thoughts and laughed. Young mages like you are definitely not familiar with it. Lucian forced a smile, not knowing how to respond. Fortunately, the boss walked back at this moment and handed the change to the uncle, alleviating the awkward atmosphere. The uncle took the money, stood up, and waved at Lucian. Let's go. Lucian was surprised, as he looked at the uncle in confusion. The uncle said with a smile, Didn't you have all your money stolen by a thief? You don't seem like a local, so how are you planning to live? Lucian gritted his teeth. I will try to find a short job to earn some money for my journey back. So it's a good thing, I have a short job that requires some magic knowledge. For 3 days, 1 gold coin a day. If you're willing, then you can leave. Lucian hesitated a bit before gritting his teeth and standing up. The uncle smiled at Lucian and said in a serious manner, Young man, it's fine to have difficulties for now, there will always be a way to solve it. Lucian gave an unsound. After following him for a bit, he couldn't help curiously asking, Uncle, can I ask what kind of job it is? That's right, I haven't asked for your name yet. You can just call me Rondo. As for the job, I opened a small workshop and recently received a job. It's to make a batch of magic fans for a factory, so I need to recruit some magic array workers to help me. You have no problem drawing the primary grade wind magic array, right? The uncle suddenly asked. No problem. This magic array is rather simple. Then it's fine. Uncle Rondo nodded. The other side was in a rush, so I wanted to recruit some temporary workers in the city, but I bumped into you when I was eating. You don't need to thank me. If you can help me finish this batch of goods and don't delay, I should be the one thanking you. Lucian quickly waved his hand. No, not only did you pay for my meal, you also gave me a job. No matter what, I should be the one thanking you. Uncle Rondo revealed a faint smile and didn't argue with Lucian about this. He brought him out of the noodle shop and turned a corner, arriving at a bus stop before getting into a magic car. The bus drove out of Doral City, and when it was several kilometers out of the city, it stopped at a small stop on the side of the road. Uncle Rondo brought Lucian out of the bus and walked along the road for a bit before a small manor appeared in front of them. We're here. Lucian looked at the somewhat old manor in front of him and felt strange. Why did Uncle Rondo open his small workshop here? This place was this far from Doral City, and it wasn't in the industrial area outside Doral City. Whether it was transporting parts or finished products, it was very inconvenient, so it clearly wasn't a suitable location. This is a small manor that my ancestors left me. To find such a large piece of land in the industrial area in the city, it would take quite a bit of money. Perhaps seeing the doubt in Lucian's eyes, Uncle Rondo explained. Oh, Lucian gave an understanding sound before following Uncle Rondo to the entrance of the manor. There were 2 guards at the entrance of the manor. Seeing the 2 of them come over, They revealed a grin to Uncle Rondo before waving their hands to let them in. After entering the manor, Lucian looked at the ruined manor and his heart filled with even more doubt. Since this was Uncle Rondo's small workshop, he should at least hear the sound of the magic machines working, right? At least. The manor shouldn't be covered in a thick layer of dust and even have cobwebs all over, right? After taking 2 steps, Lucian suddenly felt a bit of vigilance and stopped. Uncle Rondo, I suddenly thought of something, so I can't do this job anymore. As for the money I owe you, I promise I'll return it to you in the future, Lucian said in a hesitant voice. Uncle Rondo took a deep look at Lucian and the gentle smile on his face gradually disappeared. What replaced it was a strange smile that made Lucian's heart turn cold. What? You owe me 15 silver coins and you want to leave like this? How could that be? Lucian couldn't help taking a step back. Uncle Rondo, Londo suddenly raised his hand, and Lucian immediately felt a strange magic wave reverberating around him. Magic fluctuation interference? Lucian was shocked. Just as he was about to mobilize the mana within his body to stabilize the mana space around him, 2 burly men suddenly appeared out of nowhere. One of the large men hit the back of Lucian's neck and his vision turned dark as he fainted. Chapter 1150. Lucian woke up from the intense shaking. When he opened his eyes, he found that it was pitch black. Lucian was in a daze for a while before gradually remembering what had happened before he fainted. He had followed Uncle Londo to the small manor outside Doral City. He had been planning on accepting Uncle Londo's invitation to do some work and earn some money, but he had been knocked unconscious by a man who had suddenly appeared. This, no matter how ignorant Lucian was, he knew that he had fallen into a trap. That kind-looking Uncle Londo wasn't a good person. Even when he took the initiative to help her out, it was only to make her lower her guard and increase her trust in him. Thinking of this, Lucian's lips curled into a bitter smile. Before setting off, there were many people who advised him not to come to Doral City alone. There were all kinds of people here, and it was easy for a student like him who had just left school to be deceived. But he thought that he was just a poor student and that other people wouldn't be able to trick him, so they wouldn't target him. As long as he was careful, there shouldn't be any problems. But the facts now told Lucian that he had been too naive. First a thief stole his remaining bit of money and then he was cheated of it by someone else. Now he was in the hands of someone else. Wait a minute. Lucian knit his brows as doubt filled his heart. Based on the constant vibrations and gwang, gwang, gwang metal colliding sounds coming from under him, it could be inferred that he should be in a magic car that was moving at high speeds, currently driving on an uneven road. Then based on this situation, it was very likely that he had been kidnapped. But this was what Lucian didn't understand. Why would they kidnap him? He was just a poor student. His family didn't have much money, and he didn't have anything that people liked. What benefits did kidnapping him have? Even if it was those legendary human traffickers, they wouldn't like him who didn't have any meat on him, not to mention a young and beautiful child from the countryside, right? There was a trace of fear that appeared in Lucian's heart. Based on the current situation, he was being transported to another place by the kidnappers, and it was hard to know where he would appear next. If he allowed this to continue, he might not be able to see his family and friends again. Lucian took a deep breath. The turbid air rushed into his nostrils, causing him to cough loudly. However, it also allowed him to regain some of his composure. After moving his body and realizing that he was not tied up, Lucian groped around with his hands and propped himself up. At this time, his eyes had gradually adapted to the surrounding darkness. With the light that came from who knows where, he found that there were some figures around him. There shouldn't be much space in the trunk of a large transport magic car. Lucian thought for a moment and raised his right hand, mana circulating within his body. A faint light shone on the tip of his index finger. In the blink of an eye, It was like a candle being swept away by a gust of wind. It flickered for a moment before it was extinguished. Lucian was stunned and once again condensed the mana in his body. However, the situation this time was no different from before. The light only appeared for a moment before disappearing. Lucian found it very strange. He didn't believe it and condensed his mana a few more times, but the result was the same every time. After a few tries, a slightly tired voice sounded. "All right, don't waste your energy. There is already a magic forbidding domain array in this car, otherwise do you think it can trap all of us magicians?" Lucian looked in the direction of the voice and saw a blurred figure. "You're also a magician? What do you mean I'm also a magician? Everyone here is." A laugh came from the corner. "Otherwise, why do you think those fellows caught a group of normal people?" Lucian could hear that this person's voice was very young, which made it even more strange. "You're also a student? You're also a student?" that person asked back. "I'm from Philip's Academy, I'm graduating this year," Lucian replied. That person was silent for a bit before suddenly laughing. "You're so casual about your background, it's no wonder you were tricked so easily." Lucian knit his brows. "Weren't you tricked as well?" That person was completely silent this time and didn't say anything else. Lucian also had no interest in bickering with that person. He searched his body and found that apart from the clothes he was wearing, everything else had been taken away. This didn't surprise him. After thinking for a while, he once again concentrated on mobilizing the magic power in his body. This time, he didn't try to mobilize the magic elements to create an illumination spell like before, but carefully probed with his magic power and began to sense the flow of magic elements in the surrounding space. After carefully sensing, he immediately found that the surrounding magic power space was indeed not in a normal state. The flow of magic elements in the space was obviously restricted in a special way, so much so that it was almost stagnant. Naturally, it was very difficult to mobilize and condense them to form magic. This should be the effect of the magic forbidding domain array that person mentioned just now. This kind of thing was a very common application that restricted magicians' ability. Ordinary magicians simply couldn't use their magic power to condense magic elements to form magic in such an environment, so naturally they were not much different from ordinary people. But after Lucian closed his eyes and seriously sensed for a while, he stretched out a finger and drew on the ground. A bit of light seeped out from the line he drew with his magic power, and then was annihilated. Suddenly, there was a sneer in the corner, as if mocking Lucian for overestimating himself. But Lucian didn't care, and once again persisted in condensing his magic power, and drew another line on the ground. As a bit of light lit up and then extinguished in the dim carriage, Lucian had drawn a magic array consisting of many lines on the ground in a short while. After finishing these preparations, Lucian placed his hand on the magic array, and while infiltrating the magic power in his body into this magic array, he carefully adjusted the vibration frequency of the magic power and made slight adjustments to the magic array. The flickering light on the magic array was still flickering at first, but after a while it gradually stabilized, and finally lit up a stable, bright but not dazzling light, completely illuminating the originally dark carriage. Lucian continued to pour his magic power into the magic array, then raised his head and looked around with the help of the light, and saw many young faces looking at him with astonishment. The carriage wasn't big, but as far as the eye could see, there were no less than 20 people squeezed inside, and all of them were young people about the same age as Lucian. Among them, there were both men and women, but there were more men. Lucian looked around at the faces of the people around him, and then asked loudly, "Are you all mages?" This question stunned everyone, and then a young boy nodded in response. "I am a student of Carmen Academy. Did you just say that you are from Philip Academy?" The boy looked Lucian up and down, and his expression was somewhat puzzled. "When did Philip Academy become so strong?" "Yes, you can actually break this anti-magic domain array?" A young girl with a round face came over curiously, and lowered her head to look at the magic array Lucian had drawn. After thinking for a moment, she shook her head. I don't understand. How did you do it? It's nothing, I just adjusted the vibration frequency of the magic power to more or less the same wavelength of the surrounding magic elements, and then used the principle of resonance to forcibly draw this magic array. This effect can't be maintained for long, and it can't be said that I broke this anti-magic domain array. That's still very impressive. The girl looked at Lucian in amazement. You look to be about the same age as me, but you can actually adjust the vibration frequency of the magic power at will. Even the most outstanding seniors in our academy find it difficult to do so. Lucian smiled, and wanted to say that it should be because the overall strength of the academy was too weak. In Philip Academy, Lucian's ability to precisely control magic power wasn't even in the top 10 of the grade. Hey, you said that you can't break this anti-magic domain array? Another boy was concerned about a more practical problem. Since you can draw this magic array, then you can break it, right? If you can, we might be able to escape from this carriage. Hearing this, everyone's eyes focused on Lucian. Yes, if we are transported to an unknown place like this, it will be over. That's right, think of a way. As long as you can break this anti-magic domain array, every one of us here will be able to fly away. Quickly give it a try. Lucian smiled bitterly and waved his hand. Anti-magic domain arrays are currently one of the most complicated research subjects. How can I be so powerful that I can break it so easily? It won't hurt to give it a try. That's right, you can clearly draw this magic array. You must try it before we reach the place, or else you won't have a chance. Lucian wanted to refuse, but a boy in the corner suddenly got up and strode over, slapping the magic array Lucian had drawn. Stop talking nonsense, everyone wants you to give it a try, so just give it a try. In any case, none of us can do it. You won't lose anything by trying. Lucian recognized this voice as the one who had spoken to him first. He froze for a moment and wanted to say something, but that person pushed him hard, and his left hand, which had been pressing on the magic array, was immediately forced away. Lucian was about to speak, but he discovered that the magic array's flickering light only fanned twice before stabilizing. Looking at the boy's right hand that was pressing on the magic array, Lucian was greatly surprised. This guy could so easily activate the magic array Lucian had drawn himself. It was enough to prove that his understanding of magic arrays and magic had reached a certain level, not much weaker than Lucian's. Seeing that he had maintained the illumination of the magic array, Lucian muttered to himself for a moment before walking to the side of the carriage under everyone's gazes. He stretched out his hand and pressed on the sealed carriage wall. Lucian frowned when he sensed it with his mana. Chapter 1151. The so-called magic forbidden domain array was actually to make the magic elemental energy in a magic space abnormal. It made it so that magicians couldn't use their magic to influence and control the magic elemental energy, so naturally they couldn't use magic. To break this effect, there were two methods. The first method was to obtain the data on the magic forbidden domain array, especially the data on the magic space affected. Then they could change the way they used their magic and gain the ability to control the magic elemental energy again. This method was similar to the method Lucian had used to draw the magic array, but Lucian's method was a bit trickier, so it was far from truly breaking it. The second method was purely physical destruction. It was to directly destroy the item on which the magic forbidden domain array was drawn, which would naturally destroy the effects of the magic forbidden domain array. With the current environment Lucian's group was in, this magic forbidden domain array could only be drawn in the magic car under their feet. But when Lucian's hand touched the walls of the car, he immediately felt another kind of magic interference. He quickly analyzed that whether it was the walls of the car he was touching or the floor he was standing on, there was an additional strengthening magic array. The use of this strengthening magic array was very simple. It was to strengthen the item, making it hard for it to change shape. So if he wanted to destroy the car they were in, he had to break this strengthening magic array first. However, when Lucian gave it a try, he found that the finesse of this strengthening magic array far surpassed his imagination. It wasn't at a level that he could understand right now. It's very clear that the other side is very prepared, so they dared to let us move freely in the car. Lucian gave a sigh and told the results of his investigation to the others in the car. The people in the car weren't surprised by his answer, but they were a bit disappointed. They were the same as Lucian. They were all students of the various magic machine industrial schools of the Canla Empire. They could be considered decent magicians, so naturally it was easy for them to investigate this situation. They had encouraged Lucian to give it a try because they saw that he could create a magic array in this environment, so they had a bit of expectation for him. Now that Lucian had expressed that he had no other choice, although everyone was disappointed, they understood that Lucian was only a student about the same age as them. Even if he was stronger than them in some aspects, it couldn't be by much. The boy who was helping Lucian to maintain the illumination circle let out a long sigh and let go of his hand. The carriage returned to darkness. Everyone's hearts sank into darkness along with the carriage. Lucian naturally wasn't willing to give up, but no matter how he probed, he still couldn't think of any way to resolve the current predicament. In the end, he was just a student who was about to graduate from the academy. Even if his results in the academy were considered outstanding, his experience, knowledge, and ability were still limited. How could he possibly deal with such a situation? The bumps in the carriage continued, which meant that the magic car carrying them was quickly heading to their destination. In the darkness, it was unknown how much time passed before the magic car slowly came to a stop after a few bumps. Everyone in the dark looked at each other, knowing that they had reached their destination. After some faint sounds of conversation came from outside, the back door of the carriage was suddenly pulled open. The strong sunlight suddenly shone in, and the people in the carriage who hadn't seen light for a long time couldn't help but close their eyes. "All right, all of you, come down." A rough voice rang out. A rough voice came from inside. "I'm warning you, don't have any bad ideas or you'll suffer." Lucian narrowed his eyes and tried hard to look outside. He saw two large men guarding the back door of the carriage, and there were several roofs outside, so he didn't know where they were. "Stop pretending to be dead, quickly get up. Time is tight for these masters." The two large men impatiently knocked on the door of the carriage. The loud noise buzzed in the carriage, and everyone couldn't help but cover their ears. Lucian glanced at the two burly men. Just as he was about to make a move, a black shadow that had been hiding in the corner of the door suddenly rushed out. It jumped directly into the air and paused, as if it was about to fly. However, his body only paused in the air for a moment. Then, as if he had lost all support, he fell from the air with a bang and landed directly on the ground. The two large men were stunned before reacting. Looking at the person who couldn't move from the pain on the ground, they broke out in laughter. "Ha, kid, you want to escape after coming here? Don't dream. Let me tell you, this entire place is covered with an anti-magic field array. Not to mention a bunch of kids like you, even a great mage wouldn't be able to escape." Lucian's expression changed slightly. When Londo introduced himself, he used the title of Level 3 Magician, and the two large men were now using the title of Great Mage. This was a ranking system that had been abandoned by the signs. Why were they still using it? Was there a connection between them? After the two large men mocked him, one of them reached out and grabbed the person on the ground by the hair and lifted him up. Lucian was slightly shocked. The person who suddenly rushed out and tried to escape was the boy who had taken the initiative to talk to him and later helped him maintain the magic array. The large man who grabbed him didn't say anything and punched him hard in the stomach. The large man's punch was very strong. The boy's body wasn't very strong either and was immediately bent over by the punch, spitting out a mouthful of blood. When the two burly men saw this, they laughed proudly. "Hey, you bunch of magician brats! If it was in the past, us brothers would have been afraid of you, but now, you're just trash without any strength." The other large man waved at the people in the carriage. "Do you see that? Come down obediently, or you'll end up like him." The people in the carriage looked at each other and helplessly jumped down one by one. Every time someone jumped down, the large man would take out a pair of handcuffs to bind their hands, obviously not giving them any freedom. When it was Lucian's turn, he didn't resist and obediently reached out his hands to be bound by the handcuffs. When the handcuffs were on him, he clearly felt a magical wave coming from the handcuff. Then he immediately found that the flow of magic in his body was greatly disrupted, to the extent that it became very jerky. He even completely lost the ability to control the magic in his body. Lucian was astonished. Interfering with a magician's magic, this was a new research topic that had just arisen in the Signs magic circle in the past 2 years, but the people in front of him had already made a corresponding product. With the special magic car that they used to transport them, as well as the large-scale magic forbidden domain array, it could be seen that the power behind them was very strong. But until now, Lucian still couldn't figure out why they kidnapped his students. But the two large men clearly weren't interested in explaining. After putting the handcuffs on everyone, they pushed them deeper into the manor they were currently in. After taking a few steps, the two girls in the group suddenly broke out in tears. We're not going, I beg you. I beg you to let us go, all right? I don't want to go. I want to go back to see my mother." Hearing the cries of the two girls, the rest of the boys, including Lucian, turned their heads away, not daring to meet the eyes of the two girls who were begging for help. They were just ordinary students. Under such circumstances, what could they use to fight against these enemies, who were obviously well organized and had a deep background? The two large men were clearly used to this scene, so they forcefully pushed the two crying girls away. They laughed as they said, "All right, we're not selling you to a brothel, what are you crying for? That's right, we're just doing illegal work. Relax, buyers like you treasure you, so we won't do anything to you. Of course, that is on the premise that you're obedient. If you're not obedient..." Lucian's heart skipped a beat. Illegal work. Could it be that this group of people were members of the evil organization that had emerged in recent years and sold low-level magicians as laborers? This organization was said to be very strict, so if they fell into their hands, it would be hard for them to see the light of day again. The surrounding people had clearly heard of this rumor before, so their expressions all changed and they became restless. However, the two large men didn't hesitate to kick and punch them, not showing any mercy at all. They immediately suppressed the restlessness. "Bah! I already told you, as long as you were obedient, it would be fine. You just had to cause some trouble, so we had to do it ourselves." One of the large men spat on his fist, which he had just punched, and rubbed it hard. "I'm warning you, if you dilly-dally again, I won't be so gentle next time." The group of people stammered, but no one dared to resist, so they could only follow the two large men and continue to walk forward. Lucian looked at the entrance of the manor in the distance, and his heart gradually sank. He knew that if he walked in, it would mean that he would become an illegal worker, never to see the light of day again. Not to mention entering the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce of his dreams. Even returning to his hometown and seeing his parents again would be an extravagant hope. What to do? At this moment, a clear and melodious voice that sounded full of vitality suddenly rang out. "Hey, the game is over!" Chapter 1152. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice in shock. They saw a girl in the group slowly raise her head and meet everyone's gaze. This girl didn't do anything special before and always kept her head down, so she didn't attract much attention. Now that she suddenly said such a sentence, everyone was very surprised. "Why are you looking at me? I said the game is over. Everyone can go back." The girl's voice sounded very playful, but her expression didn't change at all, which made people feel very strange. The two strong men looked at each other, and one of them strode over and roared, "Hey, little girl, what are you talking about? Are you asking for a beating?" The girl tilted her head and looked at the strong man. She still didn't change her expression and let out a playful laugh. A fireball suddenly flew out from her raised hands and directly sent the strong man flying. The other strong man stared blankly at his companion who was sent flying. After a while, he reacted and shouted in shock, "Impossible! How are you still able to use magic? Is such a flawed magic array worthy of being called an anti-magic field array?" The girl's voice revealed undisguised disdain. "It's not as strong as the anti-magic field array in the maze I played in when I was a child." The strong man raised his fist. It looked like he wanted to rush up and beat the girl, but he didn't dare. The girl pointed behind him. "Hey, don't you want to see your companion? If you don't do something, he will be burned to death." The strong man looked back in shock and saw that his companion, who was sent flying by the girl's fireball, was now covered in flames. He was rolling on the ground and screaming in pain. He quickly took off his clothes and patted them hard. However, the flames on his companion's body didn't weaken at all. He could only glare at the girl and run into the depths of the manor. The rest of the young people, including Lucian, stared blankly at the strong man who was still rolling on the ground and screaming, and then looked at the girl who still had a wooden expression on her face. For a moment they didn't know how to react. "Okay, let me help you remove these handcuffs first." The girl suddenly seemed to think of something. She clapped her hands lightly and the handcuffs that were originally cuffing her hands automatically fell off. Lucian was startled. After putting on the handcuffs earlier, he had secretly made many attempts to remove the influence of the handcuffs on his own mana before finding a way to remove the restrictions on the handcuff. However, the design of the magic device in the handcuffs was obviously very delicate. Under the influence of the handcuffs, he couldn't even gather his own magic power, let alone remove the handcuff. But now, this girl didn't seem to do anything, and she easily removed the handcuffs. It was enough to show that her understanding and use of magic was far above Lucian's. After removing the handcuffs, the girl shook her wrists and walked to the others. She gently tapped on the handcuffs that locked them, and the handcuffs automatically loosened. When it was Lucian's turn, Lucian focused his mind and sensed a strange magic fluctuation coming from the girl's finger. Then the magic fluctuation in the handcuffs that could affect his magic control instantly disappeared without a trace. At the same time, this strange magic separated and probed into the handcuffs, affecting the mechanical device inside the handcuffs and causing the handcuffs to automatically loosen. Lucian looked at the handcuffs on the ground, and then at the girl who was helping the next person remove the handcuffs, and his heart was full of amazement. This girl looked to be about the same age as him, but not only was she able to use magic as usual in this environment enveloped by the anti-magic domain array, but she was also able to easily remove the exquisitely designed and precise magic handcuff. It was really incredible, but what puzzled Lucian the most was why such an outstanding girl would be captured by those people and brought here. With her ability, she shouldn't have fallen into such a trap. "Hey, everyone, let's run. That guy must have called for help." A boy who had just been freed from the handcuffs yelled anxiously. The others looked at each other with worried expressions. It was obvious that the burly man had gone straight into the depths of the manor to call for help. If they continued to stay here, they would only be captured again. "I don't recommend that you do that." The girl who rescued the boy let out a chuckle and waved her hand at everyone. "With your ability, you won't be able to run far at all. And this place is very remote. Even if you leave this place, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to find your way home." Everyone looked at each other. Another girl in the team couldn't help but ask, "Then what do we do?" When their helpers come, won't we still be captured? The girl who rescued the boy shrugged. Don't worry. They can call for help, but can't I? After saying that, she flipped her hand and took out a small and exquisite magic communicator from nowhere. Everyone was shocked when they saw her actions. The people here were all students of various academies who studied magic. Of course, they could tell that this girl had taken out this magic communicator from an extra magic space. To be able to have an extra magic space, one must either be wearing the corresponding magic tools or have a strong enough magic power and have a deep understanding of space magic. This girl was definitely like them and didn't have any special items on her. Then, the only explanation was that she was an extremely powerful mage who had a good grasp of space magic. If it was 10 years ago, those who could master space magic would be at least a great mage. Now, although spatial magic was no longer as mysterious and difficult to understand as it used to be after 10 years of research and development in modern magic theory, those who could understand it well and master it well, and even create a portable storage space were all elites among mages. Any mage who had this ability would be able to obtain a high-level evaluation in space magic theory. They would even have the qualifications to enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce to conduct research. While they were doubtful that this girl had such a powerful ability at such a young age, everyone's hearts calmed down. With such a powerful magician here, they might really have hope of being saved. However, in the next moment, everyone's expressions changed. There was a rumbling sound that came from the depths of the manor. Looking over, there were 3 fierce-looking magic cars that were wildly charging over. Magic cars. These young people who had been studying magic machines for a long time, which one of them couldn't recognize that these were the magic cars that had terrified countless people on the battlefield. In front of these terrifying military magic machines, just based on these young magicians, not to mention the magic suppression domain, even if they were in their peak condition, they definitely wouldn't be able to fight them. Even if it was a powerful great magician, they wouldn't be able to do anything when facing these magic cars. This was because the new flyer had already fought the 2 empires 10 years ago, as well as some of the recent disputes on the continent. Everyone couldn't help looking at that strange girl again. No matter how strong she was, it was impossible for her to fight 3 magic cars by herself. Then, what about the helpers she mentioned? The girl saw everyone looking at her and gave a shrug. It's just 3 old magic cars that have already been eliminated. What are you all so nervous for? Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. Another girl couldn't help saying in an anxious voice, "This. Classmate, those are magic cars. We definitely can't beat them. Hurry up and call your helpers." Right, we'll be dead if we're late. Quickly, I don't want to be caught by them again, the group of people urged one after another. The girl had no expression, but she gave a sigh and shook her head. You all really aren't calm enough. Although she said this, she still picked up the magic communicator in her hand and softly pressed it. However, in front of everyone's expectant gazes, the light on the magic communicator kept flashing and there was no sign of it connecting at all. What is going on? Could it be that it's broken? It can't be that you don't have any helpers and were just lying to us, right? Is there a mistake? What kind of joke is this? God above, I beg you to save us. The hope that the group of youths had was about to be extinguished, and they couldn't help panicking. The girl glanced at the magic communicator in her hand and shook it vigorously. Strange. Could it be that it's broken? It can't be. Everyone looked at her with tearful faces, thinking that they might have been played by this fellow this time. At this time, the boy who had been the first to talk to Lucian and was also the first to rush out of the carriage to escape but was beaten up said to the girl in a deep voice, "Hurry up and run before they arrive. Since you have the ability to release fireballs here, you should have the ability to escape. As long as you escape and inform the others, we'll have a chance to be saved." Everyone was stunned, thinking that this wasn't a bad idea. However, thinking that only this girl had a chance to escape, there were quite a few people who weren't willing, and their expressions became strange. Lucian didn't pay attention to this from the beginning. He had been staring at the magic communicator in the girl's hand the entire time, knitting his brows in thought. Hearing the boy's words, an idea flashed in his mind. He walked over and reached his hand out to the girl. "Can you let me see the magic communicator?" Chapter 1153. Everyone looked at Lucian with knit brows. Everyone was worried about how to escape, but he was focused on a small magic communicator. He really didn't know how to adapt to the situation. The girl was stunned for a moment. Her eyes, which were completely different from her stiff and wooden face, turned and smiled. "What? You have a way to solve the communication problem?" "My specialty is magic communication, I can give it a try." "Alright, you try it first, I'll stop those fellows first." The girl put the magic communicator in Lucian's hand, and then, in front of everyone's shocked cries, she charged forward to meet the 3 magic chariots charging at them. "You'd better run away by yourself," the boy who reminded her just now shouted. "If you're caught, we're all finished." Hearing this, the others who had been a bit confused came back to their senses. They all shouted out, telling the girl to quickly escape. However, the girl looked back at everyone and let out a crisp and pleasant chuckle. Then, with a wave of her hand, a long, steel-like object suddenly appeared in her hand. Seeing this thing, the students behind her were all stunned. This thing. If they weren't wrong, it was clearly a single magic rocket. This strange girl being able to take things out of the magic space was something that everyone could barely accept, but no one would have thought that she would actually take out a single magic rocket. Everyone was stunned as they watched the girl skillfully place the magic rocket on her shoulder. With a ping sound coming from her mouth, a dazzling red light shot out from the barrel of the magic rocket. In the blink of an eye, that flame had already hit one of the 3 magic war chariots that were charging over. Hong! The explosion made everyone's ears ring. However, seeing the magic chariot being sent flying and falling to the ground like a toy, bouncing twice before exploding in flames and not being able to move, everyone's expressions became even more stunned. This wasn't the magic chariot the strongest weapon on the battlefield, second only to the magic tanks? Wasn't it said that even great magicians couldn't resist it? Why was it destroyed by a single magic rocket? The most important thing was that the one who fired this single magic rocket was a young girl who wasn't even 20 years old. The enemies on the other side were clearly scared by the might of this single magic rocket. The remaining 2 magic war chariots quickly separated and approached from both sides. While running, he was still moving in a snake shape. It was clear that he was worried that the girl would fire another single magic rocket. But the girl looked over the 2 magic chariots and gave a laugh. She threw the magic rocket on her shoulder to the ground and reached out her hand, taking out another one. The students behind her stared at her with their mouths agape. They didn't know what kind of expression to show. This guy. Could it be that he's using my portable mana storage as an arsenal? Boom! Another flame was shot out. No matter how the magic war chariot dodged, this single magic rocket still drew a beautiful arc in the air and accurately hit it. Seeing the magic war chariot explode into flames, the remaining magic war chariot immediately turned in a large circle and charged into the depths of the manor without any hesitation, but it didn't have the courage to charge forward at all. The girl threw the single magic rocket to the side and clapped her hands. She shook her head and said with a dissatisfied sigh, "AI, these human traffickers really don't have any courage. I was even planning on fighting them." Everyone watched in a daze as she walked back to Lucian's side. "Hey, do you know what the problem is?" Lucian, who had been studying the magic communicator attentively, replied without raising his head. "It must have been affected by the anti-magic circle here, which caused the transmission of magic power signals to be blocked." That's why the communication could not be established. Then do you have a way to solve it? Perhaps, but I need time. Need time? The girl turned back to look into the depths of the manor. When the magic war chariot escaped, there was an ear-piercing alarm that rang out in the manor. One could see the dust rising in the manor and a figure standing there. It was clear that the other side had reacted and knew that the matter here wasn't simple, so they couldn't treat it lightly. Hurry up, I don't think we can stop them for long. All right. But, can you give me some data first? Lucian looked up at the girl. What data? The girl asked back. Since you can use magic here at will, you should be very clear about the various data in the magic space affected by this magic forbiddance, right? Give it to me, I can send out the magic communication signal without being affected. The girl's bright, dark eyes looked over, as if she was looking over Lucian for a while before saying with a faint smile, I can't give you detailed data right now, but I think you only need to know one key piece of data. The high-frequency resonance of the magic elements here is between 27.6 and 29.3 Hz. You know this, then, isn't that? Lucian was stunned. He wanted to ask more, but the girl had already turned to leave with a smile. Lucian was stunned for a bit, but he knew that now wasn't the time to keep asking. He could only lower his head and nervously adjust the magic communicator in his hand. Because he didn't have any tools on him, he could only use his magic to adjust it, but it was much slower than ideal. Their only hope was how long the girl could hold off the enemy. After the girl left Lucian's side, she waved her hand at the others. It's best if you all move back a bit, otherwise you'll be caught in the crossfire later. The other students looked at each other and some of them obediently moved back. The boy who suggested the girl to run away took a step forward and reached out his hand to the girl. You should have more military magic machines, right? Give me some and I'll stop the enemy with you. Also, it's best if you tell us how you use magic. We are all magicians here, so although we aren't that strong, we should be able to help. The girl seemed a bit surprised as she looked at him. What is your name? Just call me Tansun. The boy shook his head. Now isn't the time to talk about this. Give me the weapon and tell us how to remove the influence of the anti-magic field array here. With your current ability, I'm afraid you won't be able to master this method in a short time. But if you stand beside me, I can change part of the magic space around you, and you'll have the ability to use the magic elements again. The girl said. Everyone was shocked again. Changing the magic space around you? That was already related to the domain. Could it be that this girl had already reached such a terrifying level? This was too unbelievable. Seeing the surprised expression on everyone's faces, the girl obviously guessed what they were thinking. She shrugged and said, I'm not as powerful as you think. It's just a trick. You also know that in the current system of magic theory, the domain that used to belong to magicians isn't actually that amazing, right? Right, my ass. Although 10 years ago, the president of the New Flyer, Sue, had proposed a scientific view of magic, the magicians on the continent had already established a completely different system of magic theory. Many of the magicians of the past thought that magic was inconceivable had been thoroughly analyzed, and the domain, which was regarded as the highest realm of magicians, was no longer a secret. However, it was already extremely difficult to truly understand these theories, and to actually use them was even more difficult. Even if there were some young magicians who didn't actually have the strength of a magician who could partially grasp the power of a domain, but no matter what, it shouldn't be possible for this young girl to grasp it, right? Alright, the enemy is here. If you want to fight with me against the enemy, then stand beside me. At least here, you can use the magic elements to form a magic shield, and I can also protect you while I'm at it. If you don't want to, then just stand a little further away. The girl waved her hand and gave the order. The students looked at each other before 3 girls and 6 boys moved to the side. The remaining 10 students, including Tansun, stayed by the girls' side. Very good, it seems like most of the young people nowadays are quite brave. The girl had the appearance of an elder as she nodded in satisfaction. Then she waved her hands and various kinds of military magic machines appeared from the space, piling up in front of her after a while. Alright, everyone pick what you like and what you find pleasing to the eye. The girl waved her hands as if she was going to jump off a building and have a sail. The remaining students couldn't help but twitch their mouths. After hesitating for a bit, they each picked a military magic machine that they had some impression of and held it in their hand. For these students of the academy, they had heard of and seen military magic machines on various news programs many times, but it was the first time they had actually touched one in real life. Therefore, everyone was nervous and excited at the same time. They were all at a loss for what to do. The girl looked over everyone and found that other than Tansen, who was holding a multiple-barreled magic machine gun, the others all looked like amateurs. However, she didn't look worried at all. She just took another look at Tansen before waving her hand and shouting, "Very good. Now, everyone charge with me." Everyone reflexively wanted to rush forward, but they immediately reacted. Charge? Charge where? Seeing everyone stumbling around, the girl began to laugh like she didn't care at all. Everyone's faces couldn't help twitching. Just what kind of person was this girl? She actually thought of making such a bad joke in this kind of situation. Seeing everyone's unkind expressions, the girl kept laughing with an expressionless face while waving her hand. All right, it's just a casual joke, don't mind it. Everyone follow me later, don't go too far from me. Let's properly teach these human traffickers a lesson." These words were considered decent, so there were a few hot-blooded boys who followed her and shouted a few times. But just as they were nervously and expectantly waiting for the arrival of the enemy, Lucian's shout suddenly rang out from behind them. "The signal is connected." Chapter 1154. As soon as the green indicator light lit up, an impatient middle-aged man's voice came from the magic communicator in Lucian's hand. "Hello, miss, where are you? Are you all right?" "Miss?" Lucian was stunned. He looked up at the girl who had turned around after hearing his shout and understood. "Hello, I am." Lucian had just opened his mouth when he was rudely interrupted by the voice coming from the magic communicator. "Who are you? Where is the miss? What did you do to her? I'm warning you. If you dare to touch a single hair on the miss, I promise you and the people behind you will die miserably." Lucian knit his brows. Why did this conversation sound like a scene from a novel? Although he already knew that she wasn't an ordinary girl when she took out the single magic rocket, he was still a bit surprised when he heard the anxious and exasperated voice on the other side of the magic communicator. This girl. Her background wasn't simple. She might be from a noble family in the Empire, but from the girl's actions, she didn't seem like a girl from a noble family who had been strictly disciplined. "Your miss is fine, she's now." Lucian looked up and said, "She's walking over here. You can talk to her." Lucian stuffed the magic communicator into the girl's hand as if he was passing away a hot potato. "Hello? Is this Uncle Harris? Don't worry, I'm fine now." "HM? Oh, I'm fine, I'm really fine. These human traffickers just got some old military equipment from who knows where. They're not a threat to me. Of course, don't you believe in my strength? HM. I didn't say that you can't come. Instead, I hope you can come as soon as possible. Don't misunderstand, I'm not in danger, but I have some children who need to be protected. Also, there must be a lot of people here, so it's best if you come quickly." Hearing the conversation between the girl and the magic communicator, everyone's expression became more and more strange. This strange girl who appeared out of nowhere seemed to have a very deep background. She seemed to be very clear about what the enemies here were doing. Furthermore, from her tone, it seemed like she had been deliberately captured just for this place, with the strength she had shown before and the background she had revealed now, she might be able to deal with the enemies here. But why did she have to take the risk herself? If her helpers were strong enough, why didn't they just come knocking on her door? The girl's conversation did not last long. She hung up the magic communicator and stuffed it back into Lucian's hands. Maintain its communication status. Lucian nodded. Following the method he had just tested, he adjusted the special wave band of the magic signal output by the magic communicator. The girl shrugged her shoulders at the others and spread out her hands. There was still no change in her expression, but her helplessness was clearly displayed. Sigh, I originally wanted to make a big fuss with you guys, but unfortunately, I can't anymore. It couldn't be helped. Since my helpers had already found me, there was nothing left for us to do. Alright, let's find a place to hide for a while. You'll be safe once our helpers arrive. Another round-faced girl couldn't help but ask, Your helpers must be very far from here, right? How did they get here so quickly? That's right. Unless it's the new flyer's newest magic airship, how could they get here so quickly? The boy who was speaking next suddenly stopped mid-sentence and looked up at the sky with the others. Two shadows suddenly appeared in the sky, covering the top of the crowd. With the bright sunlight, everyone could tell that these two giant shadows were two magic airships. Everyone was stunned as they watched the two magic airships quickly fall from the sky. One of them blocked their path, and the other one landed on the grass beside them. The door of the magic airship opened and a middle-aged man in a military uniform charged out, flying to the girl's side. Young miss, I've finally found you. When the middle-aged man saw the girl, he shouted out in an exaggerated voice. Do you know that when I lost contact with you, I was almost scared to death? The girl giggled. I already said that nothing would happen to me. Uncle Harris, if you keep scaring yourself like this, be careful that you don't live much longer. The middle-aged man called Uncle Harris touched his chest and gave a cold snort with knitted brows. When wasn't it because you scared me? You're not embarrassed to say this. The girl tugged at his arm, pointed at the other students around them, and then pointed at the manor in front of them. All right, let's not talk about this. Uncle Harris, look, these are the ones who were caught at the same time as me. From the information I've received, they are all students from the various schools. As for this manor, it should be the nest of these human traffickers. You should know what to do, you don't need me to say it, right? Harris turned to look at the large number of magic chariots charging out of the manor and gave a cold snort. His expression instantly turned cold and filled with killing intent. I've long wanted to catch these scum in one fell swoop. Young miss, since you've taken the risk this time and found their nest, it's easy. In front of us. Coo, they are just some old military magic machines, they can't be our match. After saying this, Harris looked at the surrounding students with confused looks before saying to the girl, Young miss, the people of the Canla Empire are behind us and will be here soon. You should leave with the students in the airship first, we will take care of the rest. The girl rolled her eyes. I knew that I wouldn't have a chance to show off once you came. But forget it, I've already had my fill, so I'm satisfied. Uncle Harris, there must be other people who were caught in the manor, you have to ensure their safety. Harris gave her a reassuring gesture. With a wave of his hand, he led the fully armed soldiers who came out of the magic airship behind him into the manor. All right, now it's time for Uncle Harris and the others to work. You can all leave this place with me first. The girl waved her hand at everyone before heading to the magic airship left behind. The students finally saw the hope of escaping, so of course they didn't dare hesitate. They quickly followed the girl and entered the magic airship. This magic airship looked like a medium-sized magic airship, but it was still 50-60 meters long and 10 meters wide. After entering, they found that it was very spacious and it was very easy for them to fit more than 10 people. This was the first time these students had entered the magic airship, so they all curiously looked around. Looking around, they found that the interior of this magic airship was different from the magic airships they saw in the magic projectors. Compared to the passenger magic airships that often appeared, this magic airship was much simpler. There weren't any fancy decorations at all, and it was very angular, but there was also a bit of coldness to it. These students were clear that this magic airship wasn't a normal civilian magic airship, rather it should be a military magic airship. Everyone looked at the girl with different gazes. That Harris had called her young miss, which meant that this girl should be the descendant of a large noble family and her status should be quite high. Combined with the fact that the magic airship they were in was a military magic airship, could this girl be the descendant of a large noble family in the Empire? But that Harris had said, the people of the Canla Empire are behind, which meant that he should be from another country. This girl's identity made people even more curious. Just who was she? After Lucian entered the magic airship, he didn't look around like the others, rather he kept his head down in silence. After a while, he suddenly stood up and walked over to the girl. Here, this is your magic communicator, I'll give it back to you. Lucian gave the magic communicator that the girl had given him back. Oh, thank you. The girl casually replied before asking in a curious voice, right, what is your name? Being able to keep the magic communicator undisturbed in that situation and maintain communication, it seems like your magic communicator skills aren't bad. Hearing the girl's praise, the surrounding students revealed looks of envy. This girl had a deep background, so if they could gain her favor, perhaps they would have a good chance. However, Lucian looked at the girl for a while before taking a deep breath. He shook his head and coldly said, "Why did you play with us?" When this was said, there was an uproar in the magic airship. The other students looked at Lucian in surprise. What was wrong with this fellow? He actually dared to criticize this girl like this. Could it be that he didn't know that the other side's identity wasn't normal? I played with you? The girl had no expression, but her tone was very relaxed. It was like she didn't care about Lucian's criticism at all, rather there was a trace of a smile in her voice. Lucian pointed at the magic communicator in the girl's hand. It was you who told me the high-frequency resonance value of the magic elements in the area, so I could change the frequency of the magic signal sent out by the magic communicator. It wouldn't be affected by the magic space outside and it would be sent out. I told you. What about it? Since you know this value and you know that you can solve the problem of the magic signal interference with this value, then with your abilities, you can use this value to solve the problem of the magic signal interference. Then with your abilities, I'm certain that you can solve this problem yourself. Moreover, you can solve it faster and better than me. Why don't you do it yourself? Chapter 1155. The other students who were observing the interior of the magic airship all turned to look at the girl. If what Lucian said was true, then this girl had let them stay in a dangerous environment for a while for no reason. Why did she do this? That's right, I can do it. The girl didn't hide anything and openly admitted it. Then why did you put me in charge? Lucian kept asking. Because you said you could try, so I let you try. The girl gave a shrug as she spoke in a relaxed voice. Lucian was completely enraged by the girl's uncaring attitude. Then what if I couldn't do it? Wouldn't that mean that we had to stay in that dangerous environment for a bit longer? If an accident happened, it might have killed someone. The girl seemed to be surprised that Lucian would really get angry. She blinked her eyes, looked him up and down, and laughed softly. You really are an interesting young man. What if you couldn't do it? It's very simple, then I'll be in charge of sending the signal out. As for the accident you mentioned. The girl pointed at the people in the magic airship. Isn't everyone safe now? Seeing that he had already pointed out the problem and the girl still didn't care, Lucian was even more angry. Now is now, but what if an accident happened just now? How can you guarantee everyone's safety? The surrounding students saw the angry Lucian, and felt that this was bad. There were 2 male students who came over to pull Lucian away. "Hey, what are you doing, kid? We were all saved by her. What kind of attitude is this? Right, if it wasn't for her, we might not have been able to come out. How can you be like this?" Lucian threw off the 2 of them. Although he didn't say anything else, he still angrily glared at the girl, clearly not convinced in his heart. The surrounding students nervously looked at Lucian and the girl. They were very clear that they had been saved because of this girl, and this girl had a strong background. If they offended her because of Lucian's words, they might not have a good ending. The girl glanced at the angry Lucian and slowly nodded. "Well, I didn't have to explain it to you. However, this operation was originally my willfulness, so I have a certain amount of responsibility. Yes, I do have the ability to send out a distress signal immediately so that Uncle Harris can find me as soon as possible and rescue you." The girl then pointed at Lucian. "But since you've shown that you have the ability to solve the problem of the transmission of magical signals, I'm certainly willing to give you a chance to try. As for the possibility of an accident, perhaps you won't believe me, but I have the ability to ensure the safety of all of you by myself. There won't be any accidents. To be honest, I was very surprised that you were able to solve the magic signal problem so quickly. I originally thought that you would take a long time or that you wouldn't be able to solve this problem at all. That way, I would be able to properly display my skills. If I really have to say it, I would rather blame you for having an ability that is beyond my imagination." Everyone looked at the girl strangely. It wasn't a problem that she was confident in herself, but why was she confident that she could protect the safety of all of them by herself? It had to be known that there was a high chance that it was the nest of those human traffickers. Just based on what they had seen before, there were already 3 magic chariots, so it could be seen that her strength wasn't normal. But thinking about how the girl had easily taken care of 2 magic chariots by herself and scared away the remaining magic chariot, displaying a shocking strength, everyone had no choice but to believe that she was telling the truth. Regarding this, even Lucian couldn't refute it, so he could only remain silent. The girl paused before saying, "As for why I chose you to solve the problem of the transmission of magical signals, it was actually because of what Father taught me. Father often told me that I have to give others a chance to display their abilities. Only then can I find more talents and discover the abilities of those people that I normally wouldn't notice. Look, now that I've seen what happened, I've found that you have an ability that far surpasses your peers in terms of magical communication. Right, you said that you are a student of Philip Academy, so you aren't in the academy right now and were taken away by those people. I think it's because you want to find a job, right?" When the girl suddenly changed the topic to this, everyone was stunned. Lucian nodded in a daze. "Yes, because I went to Doral City to find a job, I was deceived and kidnapped here." Very good. I feel that with the ability you just displayed, you have the chance to apply for a job as a research assistant in the Magic Communication Research Department of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Are you interested? Lucian and the other students all looked at the girl in surprise. She actually said that Lucian had the ability to apply for a job at the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce? Although it was just applying for a job as a research assistant in the Magic Communication Research Department, this was something that normal students like them could never imagine. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, that was the holy land in the hearts of students who studied magical theory. If they could enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, it could be said that they had realized their life's ultimate dream. But how could she say this kind of big talk? Even if her background was deep, how could she put someone into the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce? That place was famous for having strict requirements. No matter what kind of relationship it had, it wouldn't work. If you're interested, I can give you a recommendation. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce will have an annual open recruitment next month. You can use this recommendation to apply for the job. Of course, this recommendation can only help you enter the second round. As for whether you can enter the Academy of Magic as a research assistant, that will depend on your ability. The girl then said. Everyone was stunned again. The girl was actually telling the truth. She actually had a recommendation from the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Heavens above! Although this recommendation couldn't let someone directly enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, but with this recommendation, you could directly enter the second round, saving a lot of time and effort. Because of this recommendation, you would receive special attention, and the success rate of your application would undoubtedly be much higher than normal applicants. No one thought that when Lucian had just rudely criticized this girl, not only did she not mind, she even gave him such a huge benefit. For Lucian, this was like a piece of cake falling from the sky. Under the envious gazes of everyone, Lucian's expression was a little excited at first, but after a while, he became hesitant. His expression struggled several times, but in the end, he sighed and lightly shook his head. No, I can't accept your charity. With my current ability, I'm afraid I'm not worthy of the new flyer. Everyone was in an uproar. This idiot! Such a good thing clearly fell on his head, and he actually rejected it. What was he thinking in that head of his? Only that male student named Tansun looked at Lucian with wide eyes, but there was a trace of admiration in his eyes. The girl was also a bit surprised by Lucian's reaction. After being stunned for a bit, her voice became cold for the first time. You think this is charity? If your pride is this weak, then I really don't think you're suited to enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. His father had once said that only those with a strong heart would possess truly powerful abilities. You don't have this qualification right now. After saying this, the girl seemed to have lost interest in talking. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the seat, pretending to sleep. The other students all looked at Lucian with different expressions, but no one said a thing. Lucian's expression changed several times before he finally sat down and lowered his head, clearly not planning on speaking. For a while, the cabin of the magic airship fell into an awkward silence. After a while, this silence was broken by the sound of flowing water. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound in a daze. They saw the girl with her eyes closed take out the small and exquisite magic communicator that Lucian had just given her and press the answer button. Hello? Uncle Harris, I'm still waiting up there. You've taken care of it? Are some of the people who were caught injured? No one died? It's good that no one died. Let the Canla Empire have a headache over the rest. Our mission is already over. As for the background of those human traffickers, let Lord Father have a headache. It's not up to me to care about right now. Alright, I'll be back in a bit. Relax, I promise I won't sneak away this time. Did you forget? Aunt Agnes is about to celebrate her birthday. Although she's already celebrated her 100 birthdays, she still needs to celebrate. Everyone heard the girl's relaxed tone from before, talking to Uncle Harris on the other side of the magic communicator for a while, and the doubt in their hearts deepened. The Aunt Agnes she mentioned had already celebrated her 100 birthdays. Didn't that mean that she was already over 100 years old? To be called an aunt at this age. This was too strange. But this girl's mysteries weren't just this. No matter how strange it was, everyone didn't find it strange. After a while, she ended her conversation with Uncle Harris. After hanging up, she looked over the students and said, "This magic airship will bring you to the nearest city. There will be officials from your Canla Empire there to take care of your matters. There's nothing for me to do. So, we'll be saying our goodbyes here." That's right. The girl clapped her hands, reached into her pocket, and took out something. She walked up to Lucian, grabbed one of his hands, and slapped the thing into his palm. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's job fair will be held on the 15th of next month. If you're interested, you can take this to participate. With this, you can obtain the recommendation I promised. Lucian wanted to speak, but the girl glared at him. Even if you want to throw it away, you have to get off the magic airship before throwing it away. Lucian opened his mouth, and could only give a sigh. He didn't even look at what the little thing in his palm was as he stuffed it into his pocket. The other students looked at Lucian's pocket with envious gazes. They really hoped that they could obtain this precious recommendation. All right. The girl clapped her hands again and attracted everyone's attention before waving her hand at them. I should go. Pay attention to your safety in the future, don't be tricked again. Goodbye. After throwing down these words, the girl's figure suddenly disappeared. Everyone was surprised. This was clearly spatial magic. This girl's strength was indeed mysterious and unfathomable. Chapter 1156. That afternoon, Little Duke Windsor's assistant came to the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's branch office in Doral City and raised the Lord Duke's request for a magic monitoring system. The New Moon Chamber of Commerce attached great importance to this and immediately said that they would design a magic monitoring system for Little Duke Windsor's request as soon as possible. They also said that because this was the request of the Lord Duke, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce would give Little Duke Windsor special treatment. They would give the first magic monitoring system a free trial, which was equal to giving Little Duke Windsor a free trial. The advisor was very satisfied with this and expressed his thanks on behalf of Little Duke Windsor. Then he tactfully mentioned that his wife liked the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's new Magic Illusion series, so he received a set of magic illusion modules from the New Moon Chamber of Commerce for free, as well as a new small magic projector for home use. Only then did he leave. When he left, the person in charge of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's branch in Doral City contacted the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's headquarters that was 2,300 kilometers away. With a magic communication network that covered all the countries and empires in the southwest corner of the continent, even if they were 2,300 kilometers apart, they could communicate with each other that they didn't dare think of before. They could even use the new magic communication devices with magic illusions to communicate face-to-face, so naturally it was very convenient and fast. The person in charge of the Doral City branch clearly conveyed the request from the Canla Empire's Southern Governor's Manor, and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's headquarters immediately began to move. The next day, there was an order for a magic illusion projector for the magic monitoring system that came to New Flyer. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's Magic Illusion Research Department immediately began to research it. At the same time, the staff of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's Doral City branch had already arrived at the Governor's Manor's designated place to test the magic monitoring system in Doral City. 2 days later, the detailed data was sent to the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's headquarters and the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. 4 days later, the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's Magic Illusion Research Department finished the research. A week later, the first set of products left the New Flyer Magic Illusion Projector production line. According to the special request of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, this finished product wasn't transported by land like the other products. Rather, it was placed in the special magic airship pipeline between Sheenfei City and Doral City. It arrived at the magic airship base outside Doral City that night and met up with the engineers from the New Moon Chamber of Commerce headquarters, who had also arrived on the same magic airship. After a night, which was the morning of the 8th day after Little Duke Windsor's request, the staff of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had already finished setting up the equipment at the designated location in Doral City. Right after noon, Little Duke Windsor, who received the news, came to the control room to prepare for the final inspection. Lord Duke, look, this is the real-time image of the west gate of Doral. The new Moon Chamber of Commerce's engineer pointed at the illusion in front of him and explained it to little Duke Windsor. Through these real-time images, we can observe everything that happens in this area at any time. Even if you miss it, there's still this thing. He then pointed at a black box on the side. This will store an entire day's worth of magic illusion data. If you don't know what happened here the day before, you can use any magic illusion projector to play the video stored in the illusion module, so you can clearly see what happened the day before. It's this amazing? Little Duke Windsor looked at the normal-looking black box in surprise and rubbed his chin to think. This is a very good function. Even if I send someone to guard this place, it's impossible for them to maintain a high level of concentration at all times, so there will be mistakes. With this recording function, it's much more convenient. But I have a question. Sir Duke, please ask. This thing can only store a day's worth of footage. Isn't that a bit too short? What if I want to investigate what happened 2 days ago or even several days ago? Wouldn't it be useless? Little Duke Windsor asked. The new Moon Chamber of Commerce's engineer revealed an awkward look. My Lord Duke, due to the limitations of the current technology, there is no way to store more than 30 hours of magic illusion data in a standard fantasy module for the time being. Therefore, for the sake of safety, we have set it to a full day, which is 24 hours. It's like this. That means it can't be longer? It's not that it can't be longer. Someone on the side suddenly said. This person was an engineer sent by the new flyer to provide technical support. Now that they were discussing the problem of magic illusion storage, naturally it was time for him to take action. We can place one or more standard illusion modules in the magic illusion storage box, forming a small module group. This can increase the storage capacity of the magic illusion storage and increase the recording time. Then can it be extended to 10? No, 10 days is a bit too long. How about a week? Little Duke Windsor asked. There's no problem from a technical point of view. The new flyer engineer replied with a nod. But Sir Duke, with each additional standard illusion module group, the technical requirements will increase and naturally the cost will increase, so... Little Duke Windsor looked back at the staff member in charge of this matter. How much does this cost? The new Moon Chamber of Commerce's current price is 2,400 gold coins per set. Little Duke Windsor knit his brows. It really isn't cheap. Then what if we increase the recording time to a week? How much will it cost? Everyone's eyes fell onto the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's engineer. The new flyer engineer looked at the person in charge of the new Moon Chamber of Commerce, and after thinking about it, he replied, We haven't tested this before, but we estimate that the cost will increase by at least 40%. Then it'll be over 3,000 gold coins per set? Little Duke Windsor took a cold breath before asking, if this thing can be used to monitor the entire process, how many sets would it take? There's no accurate data for now, but based on the size of Doral City, it should be around 100 to 150 sets. This means that it will cost a total of 300,000 or even 400,000 gold coins. Little Duke Windsor couldn't help revealing a pained expression as he turned to look at Doral City's city lord Count Opera beside him. Count Opera's heart was bleeding, but he had a righteous expression on his face. Lord Duke, in order to increase the security of Doral City and ensure the prosperity of Doral City, this expenditure is completely worth it. Is that so? Little Duke Windsor narrowed his eyes as he asked this. This time, Count Opera did not look back immediately. Instead, he turned to look at the magic illusion that clearly showed the scene near the west gate of Doral. He hesitated. Of course he knew that if this thing could be set up, it would be of great help to Doral City. However, he couldn't help but feel the pinch when he had to spend hundreds of thousands of gold coins from the revenue of Doral City on this. After hesitating for a bit, he looked at the person in charge of the new Moon Chamber of Commerce. Can we still discuss the price? Look. An official from the Doral City's City Lord Manor suddenly shouted out, cutting off Count Opera's words. Count Opera glared at him in dissatisfaction. Just as he was about to reprimand him, he saw that everyone's eyes were focused on the magic illusion, so he hurriedly shifted his gaze. When he saw the magic illusion, his eyes suddenly popped out and he revealed a look of incomparable shock. The magic illusion clearly showed that in a remote corner to the left of the west gate, there was a medium-sized young man who was slowly pulling out a dagger from the waist of another man. This was clearly a serious case of assault. Count Opera was still in a daze, but little Duke Windsor had already reacted and angrily glared at Count Opera. "What are you looking at? Why aren't you grabbing that fellow for me?" Count Opera's body trembled before he reacted. He quickly ordered the 2 guards behind him, "Grab that fellow, grab him. Quick, go and catch that guy. If you let him escape after seeing his face, don't ever come to see me again." His 2 personal bodyguards ran out quickly. Everyone's eyes fell onto the magic illusion again, focusing on the young man who had injured the other person. It was obvious that this was not the first time the young man had hurt someone. There was no panic on his face at all. After wiping the knife clean on the clothes of the person he had stabbed, he casually stuffed it into his clothes and walked out leisurely. However, before he could take more than a few steps, the 2 bodyguards who had just left led a group of city guards from the west gate to surround him. Under the encirclement of so many people, it was naturally impossible for him to have any ability to resist, and he was quickly captured. Seeing that the young man had been captured, Count Opera let out a sigh of relief before he couldn't help giving a cold snort. Such courage. In broad daylight, he actually dares to kill someone on the street. See if I don't teach him a lesson later. Today, in front of the Lord Governor and the representatives of the New Flyer and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, such a bad thing had happened in Doral City. It really made him lose face as the city lord. It could be imagined that the young man who had done this would have a very pitiful ending. "Lord City Lord, what did you want to say before?" The person in charge of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce suddenly asked this with a smile. Count Opera carefully looked at little Duke Windsor before revealing a righteous appearance. "Nothing, I just wanted to ask, how long would it take to set up this kind of magic detection system in Doral City?" Chapter 1157. 3 days later, the news of Doral City's City Lord Manor ordering 100 magic monitoring systems from the New Moon Chamber of Commerce appeared in the major newspapers of the Candla Empire. When they first saw this news, almost everyone was a bit confused. Magic monitoring system? What was this? Why did the newspapers say that this was the southern province's Governor Manor and Doral City's response to the kidnapping that happened before? After seeing the explanation of the magic monitoring system in the newspapers, people gradually understood. So it was like this. With this thing, the entire Doral City would be tightly monitored, making it hard for crimes to hide. Naturally, it would be hard for similar kidnappings to happen again. Even if it did happen, it would be easy to trace through this system. No matter how one looked at it, this system would have a very good deterrent effect on crimes. Of course, not everyone was in favor of this. Once this news was reported, there were many newspapers that published the views of another group of people. They said that the appearance of this magic monitoring system would make people lose their privacy, which went against the most basic morals of humans. However, there were people who immediately refuted this. If you don't do bad things, why do you have to worry about this magic monitoring system? Then again, the Doral City Lord Manor had already stated that this system was only used to monitor the public areas of Doral City. It didn't include private residences. So other people didn't need to worry about their privacy being violated. If you feel offended like this, you should first reflect on whether you have a guilty conscience. The debate between the two sides quickly escalated in the major newspapers and quickly became one of the hottest topics in the Candla Empire. Thanks to this heated discussion, the concept of the magic monitoring system quickly spread throughout the Kandla Empire and even many countries outside the Kandla Empire. After the Doral City Lord Manor placed an order for 100 magic monitoring systems with the new Moon Chamber of Commerce, not long after, there were more than 10 cities in the Kandla Empire that placed orders with the new Moon Chamber of Commerce for magic monitoring systems. These orders added up to over 1,000 sets of magic monitoring systems, which amounted to over 2 million gold coins. Even for the new Moon Chamber of Commerce that had expanded the magic entertainment industry to countless countries on the continent, this was considered a large order. So after receiving this order, the new Moon Chamber of Commerce became even busier. The new Moon Chamber of Commerce had even added a magic surveillance video department to deal with this business. But for the Frestek Chamber of Commerce that was also involved, this order didn't affect them that much. New Flyer was just a small research group from the magic researchers, specializing in researching the different needs of the magic monitoring system. There was also a magic projector production line that was used to produce the various magic projectors for the magic monitoring system. For New Flyer, which had already grown into a behemoth, there was no need for them to pay too much attention to a mere business that didn't even touch the edges of their core business. Compared to this, the annual job fair was the most important thing for the Frestek Chamber of Commerce. On the 17th of July, the day before the New Flyer's annual open job fair, Lucian jumped out of a long-distance magic car. When he looked up, his eyes lit up. The city in front of him was different from any other city he had seen in his life. There were tall buildings that could be seen everywhere, there were wide and crisscrossing roads, there were street lights and signal lights all around, there were all kinds of magic sedans on the roads, and there were all kinds of people wearing different kinds of clothes on the sides of the roads. Although this could be seen in the other large cities of the Kandla Empire, it was far from being like the city in front of him, it was already normal. Lucian was in a daze for a while before slowly coming back to his senses. He couldn't help taking a deep breath. It was no wonder countless people said that only by coming to Shinfei City could one truly experience the charm of the new era. That wasn't wrong at all. With just a single look, Lucian felt like he had come to a new world. Even the air he breathed seemed like it came from another world. Even if he had seen all kinds of descriptions and images of Shinfei City in the magic illusions countless times, only after personally coming to this city did he realize how different this city was. How modern. Just looking at the huge screen of the fantasy projector that covered the entire wall of the building across the street, Lucian felt a little dizzy. Such a giant screen, it was even several times bigger than the one he saw outside Doral City. It looked incomparably magnificent and shocked his heart. As if it was responding to Lucian's thoughts, the magic illusions playing on the giant screen suddenly turned into a figure that he was very familiar with. Young Miss Renoya. Renoya, who appeared on the screen, was as tall as the building, but she was still incomparably beautiful. Her smile was sweet, her aura was pure, and her every move was filled with an intoxicating aura. Lucian stared in a daze for a long time, and only came back to his senses after Renoya's figure disappeared. Perhaps because the job fair was going to be held in 2 days, the New Flyer's coach station had clearly marked the directions to the location of the job fair. Lucian followed the directions and asked a few more times. After changing buses twice, he easily arrived at the job fair's special base located not far from Shinfei City. This place was originally a large stadium outside Shinfei City. It covered an area of more than 10 hectares, and could be said to be extremely large. However, even such a large place was crowded with people at this time, and there was almost no room for movement. As far as the eye could see, there were young people about Lucian's age everywhere. Of course, many of them were much older, and there were even white-haired old people. These people were obviously here for the job fair, and their purpose was naturally to apply successfully and become official employees of New Flyer. For the people of the Signs continent, being able to work for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was a matter of great honor. New Flyer's salary might not be the highest in the entire continent, but the status was extremely high. If one was an official employee of New Flyer, it was something worth bragging about in any small place. And if one could become a researcher of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, they would become a powerful figure that countless people worship. In some small countries, any researcher of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce could become an honored guest of His Majesty the King. Even in the two empires, researchers of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce were highly valued, and their treatment was no worse than that of most nobles. Therefore, New Flyer's annual job fair, especially the Academy of Magic's public recruitment, always attracted the participation of countless people from all over the continent. Every year at this time, students like Lucian, who had just graduated from various magic industry academies, would come here to try their luck. If one could be accepted by the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, that would be equivalent to soaring to the heavens. Lucian looked at the dense crowd around him and felt a bit nervous. He'd heard that the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce was recruiting less than 50 people this year, and there were at least 10,000 people here for these 50 positions. With his ability, would he be able to stand out among these 10,000 people? Thinking of this, Lucian reached into his pocket and felt a small, flat, and round object with very intricate patterns on it. His heart calmed down slightly. This little toy was something that the mysterious girl had forced on him, saying that it was her keepsake. The mysterious girl had said that as long as Lucian had this keepsake, he would be able to receive a special recommendation for the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's job fair, and directly enter the second round of the test. At that time, Lucian had been very dissatisfied with the girl's attitude, and had even wanted to reject the girl's good intentions. Later, after they had separated, Lucian had calmed down again, and when he recalled his reaction at that time, he felt incomparably ashamed. The two companions who had pulled him back at that time were right. No matter what, it was that girl who had saved them from danger. If it hadn't been for her, they might have been sold to some damned place by those human traffickers, and from then on they would have lived an abnormally miserable life. Therefore, from this point of view, even if the girl's attitude was not honest enough, no matter how bad her attitude was, Lucian had no right to be angry with her. Moreover, not only did the girl not mind Lucian's unreasonable behavior, she even looked at him favorably because of the pitiful bit of talent he had shown, and especially gave him this keepsake and an extremely valuable recommendation. How shameful! Lucian sighed inwardly. He squeezed through the crowd with difficulty and arrived at the registration area. After filling out an application form according to the instructions of the New Flyer staff, Lucian hesitated for a moment, and then took out the little toy that the mysterious girl had given him from his pocket. He had thought that since the mysterious girl had said that he could come with the keepsake, he didn't need to explain what it was. With a circle of people watching, Lucian was embarrassed to say that he could get a special recommendation with this keepsake. However, the New Flyer staff in charge of the registration looked at the delicate little toy in Lucian's hand with a baffled expression and blinked. "Excuse me, what do you mean by letting me see this thing?" "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.